Appreciate all of you doing this.
Hell yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
This is a cool concept here. Besides you cool folks agreeing to do this, I am happy because I get to sit down with 3 podcasters. You also do other things, but we all kind of like meet on this podcasting thing here. Mm-hmm. So oftentimes, and I've had a couple podcasters on for one-on-ones, but I haven't been able to get a collection of them together, and this gave me the perfect opportunity to do so. And why I'm excited is that I don't think the public really gets a lot about what podcasting is outside of how they consume it, but for the ins and outs and the mechanics of it and what we go through,
yeah,
it's a different animal, you know. And we're all kind of doing something different.
Yeah.
So I want to go at it. Let me ask you this: why were you attracted to podcasting? Right? What brought you here? And what do you think the future of the medium is? Those 2 questions. What got you here? And as you look forward, what do you think, as podcasting sits today, what is the future? Is it the replacement of radio? I mean, there's lots of areas to go, but what does your gut tell you?
Who wants to go first?
I'm looking right at you.
All right, me.
You're
All right.
first.
I loved radio as a kid. Opie and Anthony. You're probably the only person here at this table to remember Opie and Anthony.
I know.
Dude, come on, let's not be weird about it.
They went there already.
But
Even the second thing he said.
Literally.
I know, yeah. I literally didn't get a sentence out of my mouth.
So you know you're old, right?
Yeah.
But I listened
You
to
don't have
radio.
to tell me, I know.
And I fell in love with that medium of cause stand up, I love stand up too, but that's like a completely different way of communicating. Where we're actually just talking and being funny, conversationally, which so many more people are funny conversationally than they are on stage.
Okay.
So, during the pandemic, I had 2 buddies start a podcast. And I actually only knew the one. I didn't know the other guy. And I hit up, I'm like, hey, man, this is a cool show, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, come on, we need someone funny. And I was like, all right. And I was, new in stand-up, too. So I started I was on the show, How Did We Get Home? And it was really funny. And then I was like, oh, my God, it's so much easier than stand-up. Because it's especially when it's a lot of people, because you can be conversationally funny. Okay. Now, I didn't know the production-wise that went into it. But I'm just saying, having a conversation for me was a lot easier than having to come up with shit and perfect it and go up on stage and all that kind of stuff.
I've heard comedians say the opposite.
I'm sure it's different for everyone.
Yeah, that's funny. I've never heard anybody say what you're saying.
Okay, so for me, it was for me to be funny on stage, I have to learn how to do what I do with my friends and bring that on stage.
Okay.
So I started doing that, and then I was like, I kind of just want to do something on my own, or have it where I'm just expressing my own thoughts and not having to bounce it off, or not having to fit in a conversation. And that's when I started the Cory Brennan Podcast myself. Right. It's just me and my best friend JB, who he doesn't really talk as much. I kind of bounce stuff off him, and he's like a laugh track too. It's kind of nice.
So are you using the podcast to craft your stand-up material?
100%, yeah. And I wasn't until once I got better at doing that podcast. I was like, oh wow, this is the best writing, because I hate sitting down just writing. So I use we'll pick topics and I'll just talk about it. And I'm I will listen back, and usually the clips that I put online, those end up becoming bits.
Okay.
So when I started using it as that, it was it helped me become so much more prolific in the other stuff I do.
Okay. Okay.
But your question about replacing radio and all that stuff, I feel it's a pendulum where, if you went 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, it was swinging towards the podcast side. Now I feel podcasts are getting super saturated. There's so many podcasts about every single issue. Mm-hmm. And I feel it's going to come back more. I don't think it's going to be radio, but I think it's become more live streaming, interactive.
Live streaming. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back to having callers and shit like that where people are interactive. I feel it's going to go back towards that way, because happens with anything when it gets saturated. It becomes stagnant, and then it comes back the other way. That happens in every single art. I might be completely wrong. That's just what I think.
Yeah, right
on. But I remember when the pandemic was happening, in late 2020, I went to the store to go buy a bunch of podcast material, and Guitar Hero was like, dude, we're sold out forever. Everyone came to buy shit to start a podcast. So
is that more about people being bored, or were they or were they really genuine about doing it? Or both?
I think podcasters don't get a lot of respect for the same reason stand-ups don't, in that we're just talking. So people are like, oh, that's easy. Like, I can talk. Like, anyone can be interesting until you get behind the mic and you're like, oh, shit, like, what do I say now? You know what I mean? So
it's a thing.
Yeah, that's the thing where, like, anyone's like, I can have a podcast. Most people shouldn't.
Also,
most people should not have a podcast, but people do. And that's why I think it's going to swing back the other way, where it's like, it's much harder to be live. So I think it's go back towards the streaming live side, and eventually.
Right on.
Yeah.
Chris?
geez, I started podcasting actually probably 2012-ish. And only did it a little bit. I did it with my brother. We had a MacBook I got when I started at Duquesne. And that was pretty much the only use I got out of it, was doing the podcast. We used like old Rock Band microphones from my PlayStation. Just connected them.
What that moment in that time?
Yeah.
What turned you to what put podcasting in your mind?
I was listening to podcasts because I was I wanted to get in good shape. That was like what my goal was. So I was doing a lot of distance running. I was running for like an hour and a half every other day or whatever it was. So I was listening to long form podcasts and I really liked it. And I was like, I feel like I could, get into this because I feel like I was funny, but like Cory was saying, like not necessarily stand up funny. Like if I was talking to somebody, I'm going to make them laugh multiple times, probably if I want to. So I need to find a medium to do that. And doing that was a way to do that. Okay. I like I said, I like to listen to it. And that's one thing, like Cory was just saying, anybody can do it. Okay, anyone can do it, but will you go do it? Will you keep doing it? Will you keep doing it week after week after week, even when you're not getting the results you want? Will you still do it then? There's a lot of people that'll come tell you, like we were talking before, that they'll tell you, oh, you should do this with the show. You should do this. Okay, well then you do your show and you do that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I totally get it.
Dude, I was happy to see you got super in shape, too.
Yeah. Well, I did, and then I tore my ACL, and then whatever. But then I stopped, and then, like Cory was saying, again, I keep saying back to Cory, thank you, Cory. I got a bunch of podcast equipment over the pandemic because I wanted to get back into doing it. And I was like, the sound quality before wasn't that good. And it doesn't matter what you're saying. If it sounds like garbage, no one's going to listen to it. So I wanted the sound quality to be good. I got one of these Rodecaster things that I absolutely love.
Beast.
If anybody's podcasting up there, it's super easy without having a whole studio and stuff. So I got that and some microphones, and one of the girls I knew at the time, Shay, we always talked about doing a podcast. I was like, well, I want to bring this back, so how about I have her come on? We'll talk. We think we're funny enough. And then we'll have people come on. Give us stuff to talk about and make us sound funny too, hopefully. And if we keep doing it, hopefully it keeps growing. And it has a little bit, so, we like doing it and we're going to keep doing it. And it keeps my life on track with everything. It gives me something I have to do it Monday. I schedule some people in advance just so I'm held accountable for it because that's something I lacked. I lacked that discipline and I wanted to have it, so it forced me to do that.
That's pretty strong. There's some similarity to my story there. Yeah. Danii?
So I also have a pandemic story. So
should I be afraid?
No.
Okay.
No, shouldn't be afraid. I always loved radio. Huge Howard Stern fan. Loved him.
Boo.
I know, but I love him. And I love Nikki Glazer. And I listen to her Sirius XM show every single day. And I was like, I want to do this. Like, I love it so much. I always love stand-up comedy.
You just knew.
I just knew that was what I wanted to do. So I did hit a few open mics. I was living in Altoona at the time. I drove to a few, and then the pandemic happened. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do? So I bought some podcasting equipment like everyone else did, and I podcasted with my friend at home, and I just fell in love with it. I knew I was going to love it, but once I actually started doing it, and I also agree, I feel like I'm maybe more conversationally funny than I might be stand-up funny.
Okay.
So doing that with her kind of solidified that for me. And I'm like, I really love this. Like, this is something I want to do. So
Was it the first show or a couple shows in?
That was the first show. So
I just knew it.
I just loved it. I can't say I love editing, but I love putting the show together and doing the actual show. So then she wasn't as into it as I was. That's where Dammit Danni happened because I wanted friends.
They always do that shit.
I wanted my own podcast, something that I could control that could be my own. Mm-hmm. And I you really have to love podcasting. I feel like to keep doing it, because it's kind of like Chris said, like you do have to hold yourself accountable. You have to pre-plan things. You kind of have to have your shit together. And I don't know. I really feel like you have to love it to do it.
Okay, so let's talk. Do we all agree with that? You got to really love it. Because at times it's a slog.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But
mostly
I thought
don't
of
wanna
quitting doing it multiple
you have?
Yeah, I have, but like I said earlier, like it keeps me on track with other things. Like I feel like I wake up earlier, like I'm healthier, like small things. Like it doesn't seem like it would correlate, but holding myself accountable with that. You know, I've read something like, you know, making your bed in the morning is important because it's a small task. But if you can't even accomplish this small task in the beginning of the day, how are you going to do whatever further on in the day? So I thought of that. You know, I want to do that and kind of build upon that.
So you used it as a discipline tool.
Yeah, I use it. It's something every week I have to do. I have to do it. I have to work with other people. That's honestly my favorite part about doing any of the podcasts. Networking with all of you, networking with all the people I've got to know. They're really cool people around here, and it's different from some of the people that I used to kind of like hang around with. You get kind of stagnant with some people.
Yeah, your circle's
and you're
changing.
comfortable with that, and then you're kind of complacent in your life. And I kind of wanted to do more. And being around people with like-minded ideas that are also trying to do something, just the mindset of doing something. I like to be surrounded by that.
Well, I mean, I would agree with that. Like we all wouldn't have met had we not podcasted.
Right.
So it is nice to meet people that have similar interests, because there's a lot of people in my life that don't give a shit about podcasting. So it is
Which
nice
is cool.
to meet people that are into the same things you are. And it does give you a chance to meet people you probably wouldn't have normally ran into.
100%.
I'm always uncomfortable about doing that, though. Like
what do you
telling
mean?
people, like, you should listen to my podcast. Like, I feel like that's like the thing, like when you used to hear, like in school, like, listen to my mixtape kind of thing.
Yes.
Like, then I'm going to have to pretend to like this around you now.
Right.
Like, that's the new thing with the podcast. Because like you said, everyone has one now.
Yeah.
So, like, you can't differentiate between saying, oh, I have a good podcast, though. It's just, I have a podcast. Okay, well, I'll toss it in with everything else. Like, you have to have something to make yours stand apart. It's even with your friends and family to listen to it, I think.
Most of my friends and family don't listen.
Right.
All my
Same.
listeners are not people I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see, yeah, that's interesting because I came at it in 18. At the end of 18, I was just doing nothing but working all day. I had dove into realty so heavy that I basically was filling my life up with work. It was great. Money's great.
Yeah.
And I love people, but I wasn't engaging in great conversations. It was kind of the, you know, how many definitions of real estate can I exude in one day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, after a while, it's just, you know, and I came from a life that was pretty diverse, musicians and business people, and how all that melded, and clients all over the world. I was talking to people all over the world all the time. I missed it. And just Rogan, you know, Rogan was turn me on to the fact that, hey, people are sitting down for long periods of time and vetting it out, and there seems to be interest. I don't care about the stats. There's just interest in human beings talking for long periods of time, which goes against conventional wisdom that we're living in a soundbite era, right?
Yeah.
That was fascinating to me. So then I looked around and I said, well, Coriopolis is like this little mill town, and I got a little space I rent down there anyways. I think I can do this and start inviting people in to have conversations. And about a week into it, I go, I cannot do this as a competition for me. I can't. At this point in my life, now, if I was your age, I would probably look at my different philosophy. But at this point in my life, I don't need to do this for money. And maybe I should let people know that, not in an arrogant way, but saying, hey, this is a hobby. This is a personal project. Putting it out there, and let's just see what happens. I thought I'd do it for, I told you, 5 or 6 months. I'd be done. I would get bored, right? I just fell in love with I fell in love with the conversations. For sure. And then the process. And the editing was great because then I could relive the moment. Like that's the one thing about editing is you get to relive the fucking show.
Yeah.
Right. Whether you're, editing or then you're, out running or exercising, you're driving in your car, you can listen to it again. So I got to relive the conversations over and over again. So the whole process, as laborious as Chris mentioned, you got to build it into your life. It became like a really positive activity. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, 100%.
For sure.
Had I come into podcasting at a younger age, if it had existed back in the 80s or the 90s,
Right.
different ball game. So I maybe would look to monetize. So my goals would be different and so forth. But it's refreshing for me to basically put content out. It's kind of cool to see people take interest in it and watch the show get legs, but then at the same time, not really worrying about it or caring. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a level of freedom there that's pretty fucking unbelievable.
I think that keeps you
know?
more authentic.
By nature.
At least you're not being like bought, kind of thing.
Well, I
Yeah.
made a conscious decision not to do that, and that's not an admirable thing. It's just a business decision. I'm choosing not to go that route. Hey, 5 years from now, if someone came to me and said, "Hey, we want to be the sole sponsor of the show.
Yeah.
We'll leave you alone. Let you do your thing, and all we want is like a logo at the front and at the end or whatever, and here's the money." I'm a capitalist. I mean, I'm not an idiot. Someone
Right.
gave us the money, I might consider it, but I'm not pursuing it.
Yeah, well, I
Make
feel like
sense?
in entertainment too, like the best way for things to get monetized is just if it's good and you enjoy it.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, Rogan. Like, I don't think he set out to make it a money
He
making.
was just having fun in his basement.
Yeah, and he was like, "Holy shit!" Like it's taking off. Like anything cool, and when you're doing something for profit, like with the goal being profit, like you can feel that shit. You know what I mean? Like no one was like, "Flavor of Love" is a genuinely well made like TV show. You know what I mean? I mean, it was
That's
an amazing
arguable.
TV show, but
Yes.
it, like you know,
now,
what I mean?
Rock of Love.
Oh,
yeah.
don't get me started on Rock of Love.
Yeah.
That
My
had
faves.
integrity.
But then you look at The
100%.
Sopranos, and it's like you could tell David Chase. He was living that shit every single day. Like you could feel the passion in that stuff. You know what I mean? And that's the stuff that makes the most money.
Well, you three are sitting here, and you were the last one I had to really do a deep dive. I already knew Danii. I knew your
what a
work.
dive that was, I'm sure.
I was very appropriately social distancing. But yes, but you all have passion for what you're doing. You know what I mean? I don't know the ins and outs and numbers. I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. I just know that you're putting on a good presence. You're all doing video, which is kind of rare because the bulk of podcasts are audio.
Tough,
We'll get into that in a second. And you're all doing something that obviously you really dig. And that's why we're sitting here tonight, because it's so obvious. So whether you don't feel it or not, believe me, here's a guy that didn't know you. I mean, you were all strangers at one point when I met you, right? But over the past year, I got to know you. But you're projecting to the public that you really dig what you're doing. And that is, to me, that's worth everything.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a nice compliment.
Sure, thank
yeah.
you.
It's a huge compliment, I
Well,
think, coming
that's how
from
I
you,
feel.
for sure.
That's how I feel. I mean, because I also understand the importance of monetizing a show to keep it going. I mean, if that's a goal, then you should go at it with gusto. I'm totally fine with that. I would only warn that what I hope doesn't happen to podcasting in general is it becomes as totally screwed up as terrestrial radio is right now. I mean, I can't even listen to the fan. I mean, I'm a Steelers fan, but it's so nauseating. Paul Alexander's a friend of mine, good friend of mine, and he's on the podcast once in a while, and he's on that station, all the different spots. And I tune in to listen to Paul, but it's like, literally the amount of commercials they run, and not just that station, DVE, all of them.
Yeah.
It's almost like I wonder, like, do they not see that there's satellite that could spit out this music with no commercials?
Even satellite. It's like, dude, there's Pandora. It's like, it's just
Right.
when someone
Same
tells
thing.
me they listen to like terrestrial radio, like one of the Pittsburgh morning shows, whatever, I'm like, how? Like, how are you listening to that?
I think it's also a generational thing too, though. I think that because some of the stuff is very funny, and DV, morning shows traditionally have always been very funny. That you find cult stuff there.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just saying, like, I don't
The
even.
medium's fucked.
Yeah, like I can listen to YouTube anywhere on my phone. Like, I just never think to even turn on the radio.
Oh, you're not alone.
yeah.
And it's just like a case in point. I love albums. It reminds me of being a kid and all that shit. But if you ask me, how do you ingest your music? Well, I listen to streaming. It's just easier.
It's easier.
So much easier.
I love that album experience, but not so much.
Yeah.
But that same thing with the ingesting. I go to the Sports Fan at 93.7 to listen to what's going on, but sitting through the commercial reads, and I guess that's my point about podcasting. I wouldn't want it to turn into ultimately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some reads blend through a show are done well. They're fine to me personally. But if I have to sit through like 4 or 5 reads and it's 5 minutes before the the beginning of the podcast starts, I don't think that's a good listening experience.
That's
100%.
That's one I will listen to, the fan, because I'll listen to sports because it's current. It's, every day it'll be something different, or hypothetically it would be. I'll listen to that every day, and like you said with the ads, they have the regular commercial blocks, and then it's like, well, this hot take is brought to you by whoever. This one's brought by this plumbing service. This one's by this towing service.
Yeah.
And then it's like you had 3 commercials, said one thing about Mason Rudolph, and now there's another block of commercials.
Yeah.
It's longer than the content is.
Right.
It's insane.
Brought to you by O'Reilly's. It's like, all right, dude.
You don't know how tempted I've been to do the following. It'd be a little pricey, but I just want to do it to just see the shit show. I want to go buy a spot.
Okay.
That this portion of the this was portion of what is it called? Pony and whatever. It's sponsored by the Eric McKenna Project, Pittsburgh's podcast, or just something.
Yeah.
Just basically something, a competitor of the fucking
yeah.
station.
Yeah.
In some weird way, because we're really not. But it's like to have a podcast advertised on the radio.
By the way, would take your money in a heartbeat. Like they're so
for
fucking
sure.
strapped for cash.
Yeah, but
for
well,
cash.
I think it would be fascinating.
Call it the
Yeah.
Eric McKenna
Yes.
Better Sports Show.
yeah. The radio is dumb.
And they would come here and be very disappointed.
Like, this is torture.
Yeah, but I just thought, wouldn't that be fascinating to do that? Like, you just advertise the podcasting medium on
Do
a
it.
radio show. Because I do a radio show on Saturday in Beaver on the WBVP.
Yeah.
And it's Rocco Koza and I do it. It's an entrepreneurial show. We're having a blast.
I feel like podcasts are almost more like the streaming services now, from what radio is like the cable. Like, you kind of have to hear what's on there, what the radio station deems that we listen to, like the cable station would. Now that we can pick what we want to stream, you can pick what you want to listen to. So it's almost like on you to build your brand to
good
beat
analogy.
whatever.
Yeah, that's
Right.
good. That's a good analogy.
Exactly. To keep people coming back. I mean, that's what we're doing. We're putting out a show every week for people to continue to come back and listen to it. I feel like with the radio, like, I had a rental the past week and it didn't have Bluetooth, and like all I had was the radio, and I was like, this is just torture. I almost forgot what it was like just to listen to just advertisements.
It sounds a lot like Shenderovich.
Yeah.
Yes,
Multiple times
Yes.
every 3 minutes.
Yes.
Oh, they're not the only ones, but they are a big one. Yeah, they're one.
Well,
that
they do have
repeated.
your back and not your wallet. So I'm not sure.
That's what they say, because they only take 25% instead of 40, right?
Yeah.
See, we
Well,
know this
competitors
shit.
take
I know.
40%.
The commercials work,
It
right?
works.
No matter how
Oh.
much it costs, it's always 25%. If it goes to the Supreme Court, 25%.
You love them, dude.
Yeah. Living
damn.
for it.
Dude, oh, never mind.
You're a
Okay.
Shenderovich groupie. Fuck.
I've been 2 minutes Shenderovich.
So you're not
coming out soon.
So you're not listening to terrestrial radio if you can help it.
No.
Wow, that's.
But you know what's
heavy.
weird is I listen on YouTube. I listen to old clips of Opie and Anthony all the time, like from their radio days.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe it's just there's not that much good radio. Like maybe if there was like a breakthrough show that came out on like satellite, people would listen again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like those clips, I love more than like any big podcast out today. Like I love listening to those clips, and they're from 15 years ago.
Yeah, for
you know
sure,
what I mean, like
for
their
sure.
bits are hilarious.
For sure.
So I don't know. I mean, you know what's funny is when they had a show, they had a podcast too, which cut out all the music or ads, whatever they read, and it was just like their talk period.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of the big podcasts today came from them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
For
which is
sure.
weird.
Radio stations. What was really fascinating to me is about 5 or 7 years ago, radio stations, probably because they were terrified of this new podcasting thing, they thought they were just going to take it over. Because every station was having their podcast, then you could listen to their show and then go into a deep dive later. That was how they tried to sell it to you, but it kind of all failed.
Right.
And all that shit. The listening audience didn't buy into the podcast. So my thought was, well, people that are listening to this terrestrial radio, that's a group of listeners. But podcast listeners are like a little different.
It's probably
There's
true.
not a
Yeah.
lot of overlap, I don't think.
You're probably right. Yeah. In that, because it's like even when like let's say whatever sports talk show in Pittsburgh, if they do that like podcast thing where they cut out all the ads, they're still stopping like every
4
10 minutes or 8 minutes or
Is
whatever.
there's no, you're saying on their podcast shows there's no ads? Like I haven't really dived into those, but
Yeah, like iHeartRadio will have like the podcast version or whatever, like of like Mark Madden after his shit airs, right? And it will be like just the excerpts of him talking, but he has to stop every 5 minutes because of an ad. So like if we were doing a talk radio show, we would have stopped 3 times by now.
Got it.
So that you don't have that like continuous flow of consciousness.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So it's still like chopped up and weird.
It is weird.
Yeah.
It's that makes it almost unlistenable.
It does, because people don't converse that way.
No, they
That
don't.
almost makes it weirder without the break of the commercial. Because then it's just like, why'd the conversation stop and take a weird turn?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
If it was a reasonable amount of commercials, I'd actually kind of be okay with it. But if they're just ramming so much,
It's too much.
it's crazy much.
Yeah.
It's so much. And I don't think I realized it because, like, I haven't listened to radio in years. So, like, to have to listen to it, I was like, wow, like, this is really like this? Like, you get 10, it feels like an eternity of, like, just advertisement. And then you get, like, 1 or 2 songs. I'm like, what is this?
It's even worse on talk radio, I think, too. I mean, I would really be interested to know how much actual airtime they have in an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost like the inverse of what it should be. That talking time and the ad time. It feels like the ads are longer than the talking time, like Danny was just saying.
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
And
too.
even if it's not, it feels like it.
It does.
Which, if it feels like it, then I'm turning it off. Then I'm putting a podcast on. If I'm putting music on, I'm doing whatever.
What I think is kind of cool about this group is we're all kind of doing different types of podcasting, and it goes from one extreme all the way to the other. You probably doing the solo show with your one guest,
Yeah, with JB there.
but also
yeah.
creating a lot of material and just kind of riffing
Yeah.
and going at it. And then you have Dani's show where she brings on the guest and there's an interview there, but it's basically a lot of comedy too. And
Yeah.
it's about finding comedy throughout the story. Then you have some of that going on with Pittsburgh's over here, this guy, Poorman's, and I think, but you also have more of an interview thing going on with you, which is a little bit more than yours, a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you have me over here, the least funny person imaginable, and I'm just doing deep dives oftentimes with people, you know, and then sometimes they're funny, but for the most part, so we've got the whole gambit. Here, which on the face of it, isn't that what the fuck podcasting's supposed to be, anyways?
Yeah, for
No
sure.
rules.
Yeah, that's what I thought about when I was coming here. I'm like, wow, we are all so different. Like he probably
That
has
makes
like
it great though.
Like you probably have the most like classically produced show where like you have like segments and bits and like you have like who are the stuff to do in Pittsburgh. They have their thing. Like you actually have like a planned out segment.
I try to do it like a morning show in the first half, kind of, and a night show in the second.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also changes, like you were saying. Like each week I do it, but like, and then I'm like, oh, should I do this? And then I'm like, you know what? It's what I say. This is my thing. If I want to do it, then I'm going to do it. Why do I have to think of what anybody else wants? I don't
internalizing
care. Not that I don't care, but it's not my priority. If I'm not putting out something authentic to me, then it doesn't matter what I'm saying.
And I think it's interesting. So you do yours solo.
I do.
You do yours solo, but kind of with a general host, or the general partner there. Right?
Yeah, it's all just like my takes on stuff, and then like I can bounce stuff off him if I need to sometimes.
Got it.
Yeah.
And then you have
I
your
have
producer, but you also have your sidekick.
I
there.
have, well, yeah, I usually
Cheech,
have
right?
Shay. I have Shay, who comes on every other week.
Okay.
And then producer Cheech comes on. He's usually
Shay,
on there.
the Pittsburgh foodie?
No, that's Michelle. That's
Okay.
somebody else. That's
Okay.
somebody I just reached out to.
Right on.
Who I'm super happy I met
Right.
her. Shay is one of the co-hosts. She comes on every other week. She started with me
Okay.
and then comes on every other week. But like I was saying, I have Cheech on mainly to do sound effects. Any of the video, any of the producing, like all that stuff. Like I'm doing, if you're watching the streaming or anything, I'm doing all of it live on an iPad, which is super inconvenient, by the way, but it's hard to have the conversation while you're doing that. But I wanted to bring
I don't know how you
somebody
do
in.
it, brother. I don't know how you do it. I envy that because I wouldn't know how to do a live show if my life depended on it.
Yeah, well, it's a learning process every week. You learn what works, you learn what definitely doesn't sometimes. But just bringing somebody in to do that takes a little bit of the weight off my shoulders. But I love doing every aspect. I love doing the video, and like I'm kind of a control freak. And if there's a mistake, I hope it's my fault.
Yeah, I can feel you there.
I want to make sure I give him credit too. I have a producer named Ryan who like handles everything for me from A to Z, like audio, video, all that. Like he looks up the websites while I'm talking and stuff like that.
Oh, right
so
on.
yeah, he's definitely a part of the show too.
Yeah.
He upgraded immensely for me. So
Yeah, and you and I are just flying solo.
Flying solo. I did hire a producer because it was too much for me to
Yeah,
do
it
by
sucks.
myself. And I was like, I want a video component because I didn't
Yeah.
have a video
I
component
remember-
for a while.
I remember.
I just did clips, and
I think,
I'm like,
I think when I was on there, you were just on the verge of starting it, I think. Right? Is that about right?
yeah, I was on the verge of starting it. I had all this content, but I was like, this is just so much to comb through,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
matching audio and video.
That's
and
what
I'm
the public
like,
doesn't get.
It's
Am I right?
so-
They don't.
Matching audio and video is the worst experience of my life.
oh my god, I tried it. I'm like, I hate this. I don't want to do this.
So, okay, let me ask you a question. What software are you using to do it? If you were going to edit yourself, what software would you
I wouldn't
use?
even know where to begin. Honestly, very honestly, I would not know where to begin.
Okay.
I have no interest in it. I love doing the show.
Yeah.
And I love hosting the show and I like the content of the show, but I don't like the other component of it. And I've told you that before. It's just not my thing. I don't want
get
to
it.
do it.
What about you?
Premiere Pro. I do all Adobe. I have the
Adobe guy.
suite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like Premiere, you can sync up audio and video like that.
I know. I'm about to embarrass myself badly here in a second. What about you?
I used to just record with multiple phones. Then I'd put it on. I just used the whatever on my iPad
Yeah.
or my computer, iMovie or whatever the hell it is. I'd put that on. Then I'd have the audio, like the professional audio that I had because it was separate from the video, and multiple phones. So I had all this stuff, and editing took me like 10 hours to do like an hour. And I was like, this is the worst thing. Like, I love it if I was doing one movie every 4 months, not every week. So I got this new app, I think it's called Switcher Studio, that is compatible with iPhones. You put different phones on the same Wi-Fi thing, and I'm literally doing it all as you're watching it, tapping the different screens.
That's cool
I
shit.
have to load it up with the people's names coming on. I do the stuff to do in Pittsburgh, like you were saying, that does different weekly things. I have the art, or I keep saying clip art because I'm getting old too. I'm not quite Eric's level, according
you're
to Cory.
so
but-
old.
Yeah, you're semi.
Not a chance.
But yeah, I have to throw all that on there and then try to match it up, do the transitions, and it's a lot of work. But I also want it to be as good as I can make it, and that's kind of why it was called Poorman's Podcast. I'm doing the best with the materials that I have.
No, I get that. I get that. I'm
What do you use?
I'm using iMovie still.
Wow.
I got all these cameras, so I'm basically rendering
Okay.
2, rendering that, loading the third, rendering that. So I've got this stacked
what are you doing?
process. Right.
Let me help you.
So what
My computer would freeze.
So I've got a lot of computer power, but probably not enough to get Final Cut and stack all of the 8 video files there, let them sync, and then start parsing it out. I'd love to. There's a lot of computer power needed to do that, and Macs are quite expensive.
yeah. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
but I also have the whole Adobe suite for my business, and I use Adobe in my business life completely. So it's just a learning curve. And my thing is, if I wanted it bad enough, I could have learned Final Cut, and I could have bit down hard and bought the $10,000 worth of computer power to do it right. Could have, but I haven't. And I think intrinsically, I've gotten so good at editing shows, it's taking longer than it should, but I must be getting something really great out of ingesting the shows over and over again.
It's a ritual.
I must like it.
Yeah.
Or else I'm extremely bored in my spare time. I don't know.
Masochist.
Yep.
But I'll change it. I do think at some point I would like to get help. Maybe we'll chat after the show.
Yeah.
But I think at some point in time, I'd like to actually have a producer sitting in here. I don't want to go live, but I would love to have all of this taken away. I want to show up, do the show, let somebody handle all the rest of it.
Yeah, it's so much better.
It's the dream.
Let me ask you about this.
It makes me so anxious because I do it live and then do all of it, and then it's like if anything goes wrong. That's why it's hard to kind of have a conversation because I'm like, all right,
Yep.
are all the lights on, or are all the cameras on? And then I am paying attention. I have to prep everything and color code everything because
That's why I got a producer.
and then I don't
Yes.
pay attention to it the whole time. But if I don't do that, like you were saying, it's like a tradition. Every single week I have to go through the same steps. I won't use 80% of what I write down, but if I don't do it, then I'm going to think that I did something wrong. And then I'm going to lose track because I don't know where my mind goes.
Yeah.
I just do enough to I know where my audio is. I record my audio. I record my video. I have my content ready, and then I send it all
You
off.
take the files and just
there you go.
Let me ask you, this is kind of mechanical, but do you give the SD cards to them, or do you send it to the cloud and let them go get it?
No, so it's a guy I went to high school with. He produces the show for me, so I send everything over to him. We have a Google Cloud that we use.
Got it.
So I
Okay.
send it all
So
over
it's in
to
the
him.
cloud then.
But like because you do that, now you can just focus on the conversation,
Right.
Instead of that's why I did it because I was like, all right, if I'm kind of putting myself on an island and I have to be funny for an hour every week,
Yeah, I bet.
like I don't want to have to be worried about what's happening. I just want to
get it.
think about what I want to talk about.
So,
Right.
so for me, especially when I do my one-on-one shows, they're a little different than the panel shows. I don't have a preference. I love them both, but the one-on-one shows are more of an in-depth interview.
Mm-hmm.
I turn everything on. I make sure everything's red and rolling. Cameras are right. And I get the level set right away. But by the first 2 minutes, everything's set. I am in there because I have to be in that. Because what we do is different. We're going deep.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's deep, but we're getting. I want whoever's observing the content or hearing the content to hear a real honest and well-produced conversation. That's all I give a shit about. And so I have to be on all the time. And that's to me, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. That's the tough part about podcasting is you have to be, well, you're a performer. Yeah. You have to be on.
Yes.
And I understand, like when I go to see a real estate client, I have to be on my
for
A
sure.
game.
Yeah.
Right.
But here, I have to be on, and it's something that I'm doing as a freaking hobby. So the outsider looking in is like, what are you stressing about? But I care about what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
It must intrinsically mean something to me that I haven't defined yet, but I keep doing it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I do want to say, like, when I'm doing the interview, I let the camera just roll. So it's not like I don't want anybody that came on thinking, like, I'm not paying attention to them. It's more when I go through the stuff.
We
to
know
do
you're
in
not
Pittsburgh.
fucking paying
And
attention.
the beer
We've
stuff.
all been talking about that.
Yes.
I know.
All of us. We all talk
And like
about
I'm
it.
sure the people that do see it, like it's whatever. I have the beer picture and the name, but if it's not there, I'm gonna hate it. And it saves me from editing later, so it's whatever. But yeah, for the second part, I'll just put the pictures up, and then I lose focus on that anyway. But I do. I like the in depth. This is what I actually prefer the most. It's just this long, in depth conversation.
And I'll tell you, the only way that I could do this, the way I'm wired as a human, is to create a space where I feel really comfortable. And you can never guarantee the other person is going to feel comfortable. I had one person that had OCD. And he told me, and he goes, I'm having a hard time sitting in here. And I said, well, listen, man, we'll take it in chunks. Go have your cigarette out there when we had to take it in chunks because this
Like, because it's busy, it was bothering him.
Yeah. And I felt bad because I never even assumed that was a possibility. Right?
Yeah.
I figured all this craziness is just easy for everybody to take, and it wasn't for him. So I had to learn, but I need to be in a comfortable place to really get engaged. And that is, like, when I watch all of you doing your thing, another thing that endears me is that you all look, and again, I realize I'm not looking at the first show you did.
Yeah.
I'm looking at time in, but you all look relaxed and comfortable, and you look excited, and it doesn't come off as being fake. Does that make any sense? Because I can tell. I can tell. But you're genuinely there to do it. And you might feel like ass inside that moment, but you can tell you're on.
Yeah. Like people can sense comfortability. That's
100%.
like, especially on stage. Like that's like the number one way to not bomb is to not be uncomfortable. Like if you're comfortable, it's very hard to bomb because you can even say like, "This sucks, I'm bombing," and people are like, "Okay, at least he knows." Like, thank God, right? So it's like same thing in podcasts. Like, if you're comfortable, people can feel that. It's why like bartenders are attractive inherently because they're more comfortable in this space than you are. So it's like, oh shit, like. He's busy and he's moving.
I honestly think that's part of the reason I'm more comfortable because I hate speaking in front of people. I'm uncomfortable with conversation, but I work in a restaurant. I bartend. I serve. I know how to have conversations.
You're uncomfortable with conversation? Really?
Really? Yeah, I'm comfortable with people. I'm more comfortable now, and it's something because I wasn't comfortable with.
That's honest.
And because I wasn't comfortable with it, I had to overcome that, and that's something that I'm like doing more and more every day.
Fair enough.
Like if I hate it or if I'm uncomfortable with it, then grow the fuck up. Like go do it, and it's something I want to do to push myself. So yeah, speaking in front of people, I was uncomfortable doing that.
Okay.
But doing this long form and stuff, I'm comfortable doing this. I'm comfortable when I step in the stage where we do it 565 Live. We go on. I set the whole thing up every single week.
There's a beauty to that, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you do that enough times,
I love it. It's a ritual every week.
Exactly.
I love setting it up.
Yeah.
That's one thing I have to thank Cheech for. He helps set it up. He helps fix the feng shui, and it's comfortable being there. And once it starts, it's like when the microphone is in front of me. It's not the same uncomfortability because it's not necessarily it's me. It's kind of me being
I get that.
the host instead of me being the person.
No, I get
kind of
that.
thing.
And you're
Right.
comfortable. I mean, you're just like sitting in someone's living room just having a conversation. That's how you came off to me.
That's how I try to make it feel, because I am inviting these people into my home because I'm still podcasting from my house. So I'm inviting you over to be on my podcast. So I want you to feel as welcome and comfortable as possible. So I try to radiate that towards my guest.
Yeah.
And I am genuinely excited to have that person on. And it's funny, like, even if I am a little nervous, once the camera's on and once the mic's on, I feel completely comfortable.
Yeah,
Like,
it shows.
it's a switch.
It shows.
And it's amazing. Like, it's such a weird transition, but it's very natural.
Did that kind of happen to all of you the first show? Not that the first shows were always great, because I can assure you mine wasn't. But it was good enough to realize that I loved it, and it was good enough to realize that I can do this. You know, that's kind of what I told myself.
Yeah.
You know,
It
show's
kind
way
of-
back in 2012, your first show. Right?
Well, yeah, that was not the first. That was the first show, but it wasn't very good. It was basically.
But it was still
me
your first
saying,
experience,
I'm
though.
talking into a microphone. Listen to me talk, and then
This
I
is
published
Mr.
it. It was
Microphone.
like, yeah.
I'll be around to pick you up later.
I was excited that I was able to record something, like just do that, and I was like, oh wow! And then I saw my name on iTunes or whatever at the
Made
time.
you feel good, huh?
And I was like, oh my god, look at this!
I'm a real thing.
Yeah.
I feel very professional. I'm like, oh, there it is.
And then I realized, oh, anyone can get on if you just submit it.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
But
Danny, we've been talking about you.
I have that Nevermind Alcoholics album in my living room. I have that Nevermind
Oh, the
Alcoholics
Pistols.
album. Yeah.
Yeah, rock and roll's done me well. My old bones. It's cool that I can be the age I am and still talk with the three of you. First off, that you're all willing to come, but also that it's relevant.
Yeah, you,
know what I mean?
talk like how old are you?
56.
All right, that's not even old.
no.
Well,
You don't. First of all, you don't
I'm
look
not
56.
Old, but
First of all,
oh, thank you.
and put this in the episode so people don't think I'm an asshole.
you
You don't look.
I know you're an asshole.
You don't look as old as I make you sound.
You don't look 56,
fuck.
and 56 isn't even old. You're in good
No.
shape.
No.
You're fine. You're good.
The reason I think I feel that sometimes is that there is this big divide. People my age in their 30s, early 30s, who didn't shun the internet, adapted it and used it in their life and just made it part of their being.
Yeah.
But the people that were in their early 30s, 95, 96, that didn't want any parts of it.
Yeah.
Or were real slow adapters. So you have these two huge segments of society out
left
there in their
behind.
50s right now. And a lot of them are the only experience of the internet they know is how to work an app on their phone for their social media.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
a different thing. So being around younger people invariably has done me well. So yeah,
It's-
whatever it is.
It's funny how like my dad is 76. He had me really old, and it's like crazy like where I could just me and my brother pick up things with technology that he couldn't. But now I'm like looking at people younger, and I'm like, how the fuck do you play Fortnite? You know
Oh
what I
my
mean?
God.
Like I tried playing it, I literally cannot play it. Or like even like how to use TikTok and stuff. I'm like, what in the hell? Like they just pick it up immediately. I'm like, oh, that's what that was like.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
shit, it does make you feel old to like just at a base level not understand how to use this shit. You know what I mean? Where you see 8-year-olds who just like
Oh yeah, every generation has
exactly
oh,
how
yeah.
to use that.
Also,
Yeah.
the fact that I'm like, I hate TikTok. I'm like, you're that grumpy old guy now.
I hated TikTok
Right.
Yeah.
until I had a video go 500,000 views, and I was like, dude, TikTok's pretty cool.
Pretty good about
I
picking
love
out
it.
stars, man.
I should probably get on that thing. Okay, I want to talk a little bit. We're going to start with you
okay.
about guest selection,
Okay.
how you handle folks that contact you
Okay.
that are just not a good fit. Not that how you show that you're not a mean person or anything, but how you handle that whole thing. It's awkward, and I'll talk about what's going on with me.
Okay.
And have you had any, and we don't have to name names, although it's funner if you do, but
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to name names, but have you had
Let's yell a name.
have you had disappointments on there? Or if they just, I won't say always disappointments, like people fall on their face, but things that you go into that just don't turn out as you kind of thought they would.
I've definitely run into that. I feel like from some of the guests that I've had, I feel like certain guests, like maybe I had a different expectation. And I feel like sometimes I'll have guests on that kind of surprise me. Okay. So I've had guests on before where I'm like, this is going to be an easy conversation. This is going to be very simple. Like, this is going to be good. Like, I'm going to prepare, but I'm going to leave it kind of open. And then I'm like pulling stuff out of this person. And I'm like, I did not expect this from
Extracting
you.
a tooth.
Like, you're literally trying to do that. I'm like, this just isn't what I've expected. So I've been surprised a few times as far as that goes. So I try to be over prepared now because I don't want to run into that, and I don't want there to be, and I know I can edit it, but I don't like there to be like stagnant air between me and the guest.
Yes.
As far as a selection, I make a list of people that I want to have on the podcast, and I'm really trying to go past, like, I did start with a lot of like podcasters and comedians. I do want to branch out a little bit. Sure. So I'm trying to go a little bit beyond that, but I have a list prepared that I kind of work off of, and I try to like work a month in advance and kind of reach out and contact people. I really haven't had anyone that's really contacted me that I haven't wanted on the podcast.
Okay.
I will say I did have someone reach out, and I'm sure it will, that I was a little surprised by. And I was like, okay, I don't know that I would ask you to be on my podcast, but I'm going to give this a try just to see what it's going to be like. It was a very interesting experience. It turned out to be a good episode, but it wasn't something I wouldn't have sought that guest out.
I'm right here.
I was just going to say. Cory's sitting right
so
there.
it was actually Cory. He was the one I really had to pull from, and he reached out to me, and I'm like, I don't know about this
When
guy.
Eric told us Cory was joining, we almost backed out.
Right. Yeah. I was like, I don't know.
That is some funny
You
shit
mean the
right
one
there.
Danii hates?
Right. I'm like, do I invite you into my house? I don't know.
I get it. Yeah.
So I think in my short time, I've been very fortunate as far as my guests have gone. I'm sure I'm not going to be as fortunate in the future. I'm sure I'm going to run into things.
Well,
but
visually, when people watch this show, it's like everybody's having a good time. You're thoroughly enjoying it. So there's not going to be any reservation from certain people reaching out to you wanting to be on there. You need to proliferate a little more. But you're going to have. What I'm saying is prepare for that problem.
right. I'm ready.
I'm just saying prepare for that. Prepare. No, you're never really ready. Because I thought I was flipping ready too, but I'm like involved in some shit right now that just is a further. And we can get into that, but it's like a further commentary on where we are as society right now. People just are so fucking entitled, man. It's
Right.
unbelievable.
Right.
You know? I mean, anyways, you're up, big man.
Honestly, I don't have that many guests. Like, I've had
Based on your format.
Yeah, like I've had 45 episodes, I think, and I've had like 4 guests. Besides, like, one of my friends joining on just to join.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
actual
yeah.
guests, like, I've had, it's less than 10% of my episodes.
Yeah, just based on the way the show's formatted.
Yeah, and, like, I'm open, I guess, to having more guests, but I find, like, my favorite episodes when it's just me and JB. Because me and him are genuinely, like, best friends. So when we're there, it's just us cutting it up. And it's super comfortable. And I don't have to worry about, like, what questions I need to ask this person or, like, what do they like to talk about. There's a comfortability with me and him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like you said, the format's different. Like, I'm not doing interviews, but if there's someone that I'm genuinely, like, super interested in, I'll be like, hey, like, why don't you come on?
Yeah, right on.
Because there's been, like, some non-comedian people who I want to have on.
Sure.
Just to, like, talk. Because there's like, certain subjects that interest me, and I'm like, all right, I just want to talk to that person. Like, I'll make it funny. Fuck that. Like, I just want to talk to this person.
No, and I think, I've been on some shows as a guest where the hosts are always able to find the comedic bent. It's funny as shit. So for a non-funny person like me, it's like, holy shit. I didn't think this was going to go well because I'm not funny. But by the end of the show, you're like, oh, I see what they did here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm being used.
Yep. I think as long as it's, like, interesting for the person hosting the show, then it's easy after
Agreed.
that. You know what I mean? It's like if you're having someone on, like I can't remember who talked about this, but, like, Jay Leno would talk about, like, having someone on, like, some fucking actress talking about her fucking movie or whatever. He's just like, ugh. You know what I mean? But he had to do it for the job opposed to
of course.
someone like Rogan or whoever who
100%.
only talks to who they want. So, yeah.
You're up, my man.
I think when I'm picking somebody, I like to ask, because I have a lot of comedians on. And I think I'm going to branch out a little bit from that. I did all comedians in August, thinking it would be funny having all comedians on. And not that it wasn't. I had great guests on. But I don't want it to all be the same thing. And I feel like the funniest clips of the show are almost when it's the 3 of us on the show talking. and it's more natural that way. And I think I'm going to break away from that because all next month I have, kind of different kind of guests planned out. But I think the funniest part is, like you were saying, when it's just like the crew that you have, because that is what's funny. It's not necessarily bringing in a stranger a lot of times and making it funny. Then it's kind of like a first date. Then it's like, let me feel you out. Okay, yeah, this is kind of funny, but it's fake.
Literally.
It's way better. Like I had both Cory and Danii on for a second time. And the second time, it's way more comfortable.
Yep.
It's
Oh, for
way
sure.
more easygoing. I know what they... And it's always nice having podcasters on because they know what to expect. They know how to do it. They know when there's almost like a pause in the conversation, I should speak up here.
Yeah.
I also had like a nervous breakdown on your show about like comedy. I remember that. I was like, fuck comedy, fuck all this. Like,
when you came on the second time, I was too worried because we had Ray Zawani coming on Skype.
Oh, yeah.
And
right.
then like it didn't work.
Oh.
And then I was like, I'm never doing a Skype guy again. And luckily Ryan, your producer, was there and he helped us out with that. But
How do you feel about Skype? How do y'all
I
feel?
hate it.
Or
I'll never
face
do it
or
again.
FaceTime?
No,
or
fuck that.
It's too delayed. It's an inauthentic conversation, I think.
I will never do
You
it.
have to be in person, at least my preference.
Yeah.
Unless I'm getting somebody, Brad Pitt or somebody from LA calling in. And even then.
Yeah, never
if I have
say
to worry
never.
about it,
Never say never. Like there's some folks from my past, the Boogie Street past, that if things go well, they might not be able to be here. I will consider maybe kind of thinking of doing
For the good of the show.
Yeah.
maybe, but I'm not enthused about it because it's just not real. And even during the pandemic, I mean, I had to put the show. We'll get there. But I had to put the show on pause for a couple 2 months until I figured out what the hell was going on. Are we all going to die? I mean, but after I realized I understood what this was and wasn't, and I figured, well, not everybody's going to accept because people are still gorked. But I mean, I was having people in the one suite that I had, and I had the neighboring suite as my business, and I was having them. I ran a mic and a camera over there, and I had them sitting in a different room from me.
Oh.
And I had I had a FaceTime screen, so both of us could still see each other.
Yeah.
But I was actually recording it through an SB7 and video cameras. We were literally sitting in different rooms. The people were like, look, I'm not worried about this. I have no problem sitting there. I said, well, it's optics. It's people looking, at least until a couple more months until we get through this, right?
Right.
But the whole video thing, just no interest, man.
Has anyone ever been on Skype and been like, this is cool? Like, this is fun. Like, I'm happy
Never.
to be here. It's always like, it was like during the pandemic when your family's like, let's have like a Skype thing. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, all right, like, yeah.
I
let's
don't
play
need-
Scrabble through Skype. Like,
Right.
fucking hell. Like,
I don't need you to see that I never wear pants.
yeah, exactly.
Like, that was sufficient over the phone.
Yeah, it's like Skype is not
Now I
like,
have to clean up the corner of the room.
But it's
and
not
pretend
really a
I don't eat Mike
podcast
and
at that point.
Right.
Like,
No.
I mean, it's not a it's something else. I mean, it's something else, and there's a name for it, or there's a it's valid to some degree in terms of communication, but it's not a podcast.
yeah.
No.
There's some podcasts I know that do it all on Skype, but they're people who know each other well. They're super comfortable, so like those cues are there. Like they know how to play off each other. But having a conversation with a stranger on Skype, like that just seems like hell. Like that seems horrible.
I don't. Yeah, I'm into the in-person experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Story. It has to be that way for me. I just don't know. I mean, so the guest thing. Just so I will share my short experience.
Yeah, how do you handle the guests? That,
We would
Well,
love
I
to
have-
hear it.
I was gonna say, I'm sure you get a lot.
No,
This is
no,
the coolest studio I've ever been in.
Literally.
Only recently. I mean, no, for the longest time. I was very clear, and again, based upon my age demographic and the business that I'm in, Facebook is the heavy for me. That's what I sold guitars on there. I became a realtor on there, so I'm always kind of entrenched there. And this is we started out as a show that was primarily expanded on Facebook. So most of my communications come from there. So how do I do this? I had a master list at the beginning. I picked out. I figured I'm going to start this. I'm going to make a list of 100 people in Pittsburgh. I mean, you all see that list now. I mean,
We would love
I've
to
only
see
like
it.
7 people out of that 10 I even wanted after I really started vetting it out.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
know, just random people in Pittsburgh, 100 people. So for a short period of time, thought this was going to be something that I ultimately didn't want it to be. So I had a little staff that was going to help me curate the guests.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that, I mean, on all that nonsense and bullshit, I put that aside right away. I'm like, there's nothing authentic about that, right? I mean, like, I don't need, they're sending me people because they want to be promoted, and that's not what I want to do. And, and I'm not interested in fireflies. This guy does firefly research for some college, and like he wrote a book on it, and I'm like, well, why would I want to talk to a guy about fireflies?
Yeah.
God.
My point was, if I'm not vested in what I'm talking about, I got no fucking interest in talking to somebody.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to do it. It's not fair to them.
Yeah.
No.
Right? I mean, if I'm going to sit down with you, I want to be here. I want to be present. So I've been real lucky through referrals and so forth. The problem I have is that I don't want to make infomercials for people.
Yeah.
And that is where I think the confusion lies. Because we're not monetizing the show, people have a hard time understanding about that. And then they ultimately think that I am, helping people promote themselves. Well, indirectly, we're always promoting ourselves.
Yeah.
Every appearance you make a promotion, but I'm not expressly trying to promote someone's book sales or somebody's, if I find a fascinating story with them or something, and it gets indirectly done, I'm all for that.
Right.
But I won't produce an infomercial for somebody. So now I'm at the point where I've gotten people that are contacting me because they're doing unique things. And two of them are doing such unique things that I don't care about their business interest. They're so fucking cool. I want them on as soon as I can get them on.
Right.
But the rest of it is kind of like they might be wonderful people, good members of the community.
Can't wait.
But
to see where
their
this is going.
things are
I know.
the things they're doing are not remarkable. They're unremarkable.
Yeah.
It's just a business for them.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit down here and produce a show and spend 2 hours of my life with these people.
It's not even
I'm
like
not going to do that.
Which Shenderovich wanted to come on?
The one in the middle.
That's Fishman.
it's not even a good way to reach people too, to be like, this is my book and I'm here for my book and blah 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 blah. It's like, if you're cool,
This isn't the platform for
no,
that.
if you're cool, people will find you. Like, if you just come on here and you have a cool conversation and maybe you talk about the subject the book's about or whatever, but if you're interesting, people are going to find you.
I have to be
Yes.
selfishly for me, I have to give a shit about the topic of the conversation or wanting to be in that conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've had people tell me, well, you have the same guests on. You have some reoccurring guests that come on there, but you won't put me on your show. I go, I don't even know how to answer that. I'm like, yeah, I don't. First off, if someone tries to sell themselves to me, even if it's probably a pretty fascinating thing, if you try to sell yourself to me, it turns me off so bad I won't even pay attention to you.
Right.
I'll be nice to you.
Yeah.
I just won't pay attention to you. Because I just don't want to be sold.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be the greatest thing in the world. I'll probably miss it.
Yeah.
Because I just don't want to be sold. But they don't understand that this is not a promotional tool.
Right.
Like, if you want an infomercial for your little business, there's plenty of companies that'll do a professional job. Pay them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's my biggest piss. People, there's an entitlement thing. Like,
Yeah. And you seem like someone who, like, if you, I'll give you an example.
Go ahead.
Okay, like, if you see something cool, you want to talk about that. It's not like, I think a long time ago, like over a year ago, whatever, I think I might have hit you up on Facebook. Like, hey, like, I saw you had comedians on, I want to be on, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, exactly.
remember.
But, like, I
I can't remember. I get that a lot, though.
yeah, and, like, I shouldn't have been on. There's no reason for me to be on. But, like, after, like, now I made a podcast and working on that and putting it out, and you saw that, and you're like, hey, dude, you want to come on? It's like, it's better to come across things organically.
Yes.
Like, oh, shit, I'm actually interested in that.
Oh, 100%.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, but I mean, I didn't feel I wouldn't have felt negative about you reaching out to me as a comedian at all. I don't feel negative about anybody, but it's like, I can't then. It's really interesting because they keep coming, some of them, and then I don't know what to articulately say. I know what to say, but I don't know if it's going to land well.
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell them, look, you're going to be great. You're awesome at what you do. It's fantastic. It's just nothing that resonates with me. So I can't spend 2+ hours of my life doing this. It's a selfish show. I'm not trying to grow something monetarily, and I'm certainly not trying to help somebody make an infomercial.
Right.
You want an
No.
infomercial. There are people in town that'll give you that.
Yep.
Right.
I'm not the guy.
You'd
Yeah.
see that in
know?
school and like in a subject that you were interested in. If you were interested in it, you would put more effort in, kind of. You would retain the information better versus something that you were kind of
It's
forced
human
into.
nature, right?
Right. So if it's a conversation you want to have versus the one that, okay, maybe they're paying me X amount of dollars to have, then it's a
Right.
fake conversation, and that's not what this is about.
Sometimes money can screw things up.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes.
I'm not saying there's not a place for it, but
There's a
also
place for
understand
yeah.
that there may be a bias associated with it.
100%. And so my struggles are that I just can't be an asshole like I probably need to be. I need I need to be a little more firm and say, listen, you're not getting it. You know, I appreciate the fact that you know about the podcast. I'm flattered. You know, I don't want anybody watches anything.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to do here is be selfish in my guest selection because I need to. It's a selfish show. I need to get something out of this emotionally.
Well, my services are for hire.
You know,
If you need me. But hey, dude, fucking beat it.
Which corner is that again, Cory?
Just forward them to him.
Big sexy over there.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, this is the part, and it's not a demographic of age. I can tell you, I've had just as entitled mentalities coming from the 70-year-old as I have a 22-year-old.
Interesting.
You know? So it's not just your age demographic generally. It's like all across the board where people, and then when you explain to them, it's not a rejection of you. It's just, it's not a good fit. I'm not really interested. I wouldn't be a good podcast for you to be on because number one, I'm not here to promote you, and I'm not really interested in that topic. There's probably better places for you to go. They take it as an affront.
Yeah.
They
Right.
get upset, and terrible word to use, but they get triggered by it, and then the vitriol comes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Jesus Christ! I mean, this is not what I'm about here. This is not. I'm doing this hobby to get this kind of response from people.
Is it mostly entertainment people?
Yeah, I want to know.
No, oh man, that's a good question. Yeah, maybe if you add musicians and comedians.
There's
All
an
right.
acute mental
but they're
illness
to
to people who do any type of art.
Yeah.
yeah.
but there
They
is
need the acceptance immediately.
there are some
if you
small.
don't have that.
There's
Yeah.
been a couple writers. There's a lot of small business people.
Oh, interesting.
And look, if you are promoting something that you really 100% believe in, I salute you. I'm the biggest entrepreneurial fan in the world, man. I'm a capitalistic pig. I love it. I love it. But I can't be your advertising agency
yeah.
Yeah.
for free.
This ain't QVC.
No.
It's not.
Yeah.
No.
And there's but like an entitlement thing is like somehow they're being slighted.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm not slighting anybody.
Well,
I'm
don't-
not asking you even to watch the fucking show.
Well, they take
Yeah.
it as like, well, then I'm not interesting then. And it's like,
Yeah.
you might not be. Like, if you're the PVC king of America, like, you sell more PVC pipe than anyone, you're cool, but it's not interesting. I don't
It
care how
sounds
much
like
you
something
sell.
you tell the ladies. I sell more PVC pipe than anyone.
Well, they call me the
This
pipe
side
man.
of the mist.
Right.
Yeah. I redo your plumbing. Yeah.
I mean, let's.
So you get it then. You understand what I'm trying to
100%.
say.
yeah. I mean, let's be honest. Not everybody's going to be a good podcast guest. It's just that's
Nope.
the nature of the beast. That's
That's
the way
kind
it
of-
is.
That's kind of what you were saying earlier, Danny. Some of the people you bring in that you think are going to be good, maybe they're good at what they do, but it's
Yeah.
not necessarily a conversation. Or like Cory was saying earlier, like certain people are good at conversational comedy. Some are really good at stand-up, and sometimes they don't overlap, and you would expect them to. And some of the better interviews you get are from people you don't really think.
Yeah.
And they just know how to do it. And it leads down a road that has interesting conversation.
It's everywhere, though. Like, I have so many comics have been like, hey, man, like, I got to get on the pod. I'm like, yeah, okay.
yeah.
like, it's like, I have to be like, there has to be some sort of reason for me to talk to you apart from we do the same thing where it's like, what are we going to talk about, dude?
Yeah.
The open mic at Scarpacci's, like, what are we going to talk about? So
That's generally. See, I had all these canned responses, but then I kept making exceptions. Like, that's a bad response because they have a valid point to come back. Because my guests are so eclectic, right? I have people that I grew up with. I have athletes and comedians. I have entertainers. So they could, at any moment, they could pull out a reason of a guest saying, well, I'm more qualified than this person. And I just, look, there's no fucking litmus test here. There's no qualifications outside of who I want to sit down with.
Right.
And it's in my brain. And sometimes I don't even know what's going on up here. So I don't expect you to understand why I do the things I do. Thank you. But it's not a conversation that I will take. That's when I say that to people when they say, I'm not inclined to take the conversation and film it. Now, you want to have a conversation in a coffee shop. I can be of help to you in some way, but I'm not inclined to sit down.
And it's like you have a responsibility, I mean, to yourself, like you said, to be interested, but you also have a responsibility to, like, the people listening to you.
Yeah.
And no one knows who they like more than you. So it's like, you're curating this for them. Like, it's so you can have cool conversations, but really it's like you have a responsibility to your viewership.
I don't have much. That's an interesting question. You all do because of the format in which you're producing your stuff. I get it.
Right.
Me, because there's purely no money intended here. I don't want to insult anybody that's been a regular subscriber to what we're doing. Absolutely. I don't know how much I owe them. Like, I don't know how much I think about catering to anyone's particular needs. I see, like, we do a UFO series here with the same 4 people, and I've watched that show just take off. So maybe intrinsically I say, well, you know, I don't want to fuck with that formula because people really like it.
Yeah.
And I'm having a blast. My guests are having a blast. We're going to keep doing it. But I see your point.
So
but overall, I don't really worry too much about it.
So you're saying, like, because you don't have a huge goal to, like, grow this, like, you're not like, I need to grow by this much by this time.
No.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because, like, I view the people who listen to me as like a pet. Remember those pets that they'd be on little electric devices.
Yes,
feed them and
yes.
shit?
It's also your profession.
Tamagotchi.
Though.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Like, I view it like that, where I'm like, I have to, like, you know, take care of this and curate
Nurture
and
it.
water and grow. Yeah. So,
But it's your profession too, or
Yeah.
part of your profession.
You could have said
For
a
sure.
plant. You could have said a child.
You
You,
know?
went Tamagotchi. I like it.
If you collect sponsors and do this, the moment you get your first sponsor, or if you end up getting 200 sponsors, the moment you get that first one, you are now an entity, a business. So you will look at it differently. That's not a bad thing.
Right.
I salute it.
Right.
It's just not for me.
You don't need it, first of all.
Well,
so it's like,
No.
At this point in my life, I don't need to monetize the podcast. No, I don't need.
Yeah.
I can still manage this. Now, if the real estate market crashes for the next 5 years, maybe that's not the case. But I mean, saying now, I'm fine. But that freedom lets me do unique things like tell people no.
right. Yeah. No, that's true.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Where,
Yeah.
where you know, you might not be inclined to really be so brash because it has to land well.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that you are obligated to do to your listenership or whatever is follow through with that mission statement of just honest conversation.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
That's all. That's what you stand for. So when you do that, I think you're following through with the promise you're going to make.
Well, I'm glad I don't have to worry about it. That's why I look at y'all like, God, you have guests every single week. Fucking A. Like, that seems like so much work.
It's so much
It
fun,
is.
though. It's
Is
so
it?
much,
Okay.
Oh, dude, I freaking. This is like amazing to me. I mean, I get to have conversations that matter, and matter means a lot of things. It could be intellectual, it could be fun, it could be current, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's like I'm able to express myself, and I'm not getting this amount of conversation and intellectual exercising in my daily life because none of us do.
Right.
Really.
Right.
You seek this out. You might not feel it, but every time you complete a podcast, I really believe that you are somehow enriching your intellectual life.
I agree with
Maybe
that.
emotionally too, but definitely intellectually.
For sure.
You know?
Definitely.
I mean, it's kind of a heady thing to say, but I believe that.
I feel most times I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do this. Like, where I'm like, oh, fucking A. Like, I have to go talk about, like I talked about Corey Feldman last week. Like I have to
Corey
go,
Feldman?
yeah, I know. I'm like, I have to go
Interesting.
do this. But then afterwards, like, I feel great. Like, I'm like, oh, man, like, that was fun. Like, that was cool. Like, I have all this energy that comes out of nowhere. It's, like, nice at the end of it.
Yeah, it's like
It
a.
is.
I'm sure it's what working out would feel like if I ever did that. Yeah.
Have you ever told somebody no? You haven't had it happen. Have you
Fuck
ever,
yeah.
I mean, have you ever told somebody no yet?
I am such a people pleaser. I will just not answer it. I will not open it.
You avoid it.
Yeah. So if I
Ghost
see
them.
like if I have no idea, I'm not even gonna open the message.
I will say, even though I haven't run into it yet, if I didn't feel like they were a good fit for my podcast, I wouldn't have them on.
I agree.
If
Yeah.
I don't want to have them on, I'm not going to have them on. It's ultimately my show.
But would you tell them that?
Maybe, depending on the day. Honestly, it would depend on the day and who it was.
Yeah, I would find a nice way to say it.
Right.
Like,
Like, I'm not going to tell them
All
to
right, let
fuck
me ask you
themselves.
this.
Washing my hair that day.
dude, tell
Yeah.
me, what is the nice way to say that?
Yes.
I'm booked for the. I mean, and I
Also,
say
you lie.
no. Well, you know what the thing is like I said, because the podcast keeps me so much on track with everything else. Well, it's like if I have idle hands, I'm gonna go do something stupid.
We know what
I don't.
that
I don't know. Yeah, masturbate. But no, I mean, it keeps me on track with everything that I'm doing. So I will book people in advance. Like I have all of September booked already.
Damn.
Same.
Because I just want to have that. And now I'm obligated to follow through with it. Now I'm obligated to promote each show.
True.
Now I'm obligated to put all the stuff in the iPad, to have the beers, to have the guests, all the names, all the stuff that pops up and stuff. And because I'm holding myself to that, which I love kind of, which I didn't think I would, because my whole life I feel like I've lacked discipline. And I have an urge for
I think
that.
most humans, this one included, has throughout most of our lives. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, and anymore I'm like, okay, I want to do something. I want to create something. However well it goes is okay, that's fine. But I'm doing this for me. It makes me feel better. I'm having conversations I like to have. And there's literally only benefits for it as of now. I'm out of the house. I'm in a good mindset, which I'm not always. And this keeps me going in a good path, and I enjoy doing it and networking.
See, it's valid for that reason.
I wouldn't know anybody here right now if I didn't do it, like you were saying in the beginning of the show.
100%.
And I'm very thankful for everyone who's ever come on every single time, and genuine with that. They don't have to do anything. Thank you, Cory.
You're welcome.
I meant that specifically for them.
Yeah.
But everybody who comes on, they don't have to do it. They're coming out, and I hope that I'm a gracious host and can do whatever I can for them. But it's such an awesome thing, to just be around like-minded people, like I said, a community.
You put on a great show, dude.
Thank
you. Even you just talking about that, I didn't think about all the things you have to put together every single week with the beers and the stuff to do in Pittsburgh and just everything. You have way more than probably most people have to put together for a podcast.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I want to have it be the way that I want it to be. And yes, it's super hard.
And that's awesome.
Then adapt and deal with it. And okay, maybe it is swinging harder, like having the donut around your baseball bat or whatever. Then if I do have somebody come in and do it, then I'm going to be that much better than whatever. Yeah. Or figure it out. If you want to be good, figure it out then.
Yeah.
It's easy for me to sit and say that I have all this rigidity and it's Eric's way or the highway and it's served me well. It's easy for me to tell you that because it generally has, but it's not. It's disingenuous for me to say to you to live your life that way. It sounds like you're living it that way anyways, but there's going to be times where someone you're going to meet in your life could bring an idea to you that could really set you in a different direction. So if you remain too rigid and too unwilling to hear ideas, you can kind of fuck yourself.
For sure.
It's a balance. It's really a balance. And I kind of err on the side of being authentic and fuck you. But I have to keep my ears open.
You need a bullshit filter.
You need a big bullshit filter too.
There's so many things that people just cling to because it's part of their identity, I think, because
it's our whole country right now.
Yeah, right.
Heterosexuality.
I'm glad you brought it up, Cory.
You say heterosexuality.
You've been looking great all night. But I feel like either side of whatever political aisle you're on, if you just blanked out the name and said these are what people believe on either side. Yeah. What do you believe? I don't think it'll always match up, but people feel so strong about A or B, and I'm not saying one or the other, but it's so one side or the other.
They
polarizing.
Can't even articulate to you why they believe the things
right.
they believe.
But because I believe it, now I feel like I'm part of something. I feel like people need that sense of community. Yeah. And even if they don't believe it, if you ask people why, watch people shut up real fast a lot of times.
They can't defend their opinion for sure. How do y'all maneuver podcasting in terms of politics? Have you been in a situation where you have a guest on and you see it kind of creeping down this area? Have you had that yet? And if you have, has it made it uncomfortable for you?
I haven't. And I think personally, I try to keep it as light as possible. I'm not there to talk about politics with my guest. And if I feel like it would veer in that direction, I'm bringing it back. I don't want that on my podcast. That's not what my podcast is about. It's just a fun time. That's all that it is. And it's a conversation. And I want it to be a light, fun conversation.
Right.
I don't give a shit about what the person on the other side of the table thinks. I don't want to get into that.
That's a good attitude.
I just don't want it.
How about you?
I mean, I talk about politics, and I make my team nervous a lot with things I say. But the way I view it is that, okay, I know I'm not a bad person, right? And if I say something that offends, I'm usually just trying to be funny. So it's in my heart, I know I'm not bad.
Isn't that the spirit of comedy anyways?
Yeah. So I try my best to just say exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And then they're like, whoa, you're not going to appeal to as many people. And I'm like, look, I would rather have like 100, or I'd rather have 1,000 people who would support everything I do,
Yeah, of course,
than 100,000 who support almost nothing.
Right.
Like, so every time,
It's a good
I'm
attitude for life in general.
yeah. So like they'll be like, oh, we only got, we got 10,000 views in this, but only this many subscribers. I'm like, yeah, dude, like we sifted through the sand and found 20 people who like what we do. That's all it is. Like every time we put stuff out on social media, we're just sifting, trying to find someone who rocks with what I do. So, yeah, that's my thing. Like, cause I go pretty hard on a lot of things. Like, my clips a lot of times get like taken down on TikTok and shit. It's crazy. Cause like I talked about abortion. Like you can't talk about abortion, like stuff like that. So, yeah, I try to not give a fuck as much as possible. I'm also not political myself. I've never voted.
Equal opportunity offender.
Yeah, like and that's the thing. Like I talked about abortion, but I made fun of both sides in the same paragraph. So I've never voted. I don't give a fuck about any of that shit. I just try to give my opinion like off the top as authentically as I can.
Yeah, especially from a comedic stand, which is what you do.
Yeah, exactly.
Why
so,
all of a sudden is that like not permitted anymore?
Yeah, and it's funny because like I'll get people in my DMs, like people I have no idea at all, who will be like super far right, like Trumpers, like QAnon, like the guy who had the fucking buffalo head on at January 6th. You know what I mean? And then I'll like in another clip, I'll get like the most like sissy liberal, like pink hair and Doc Martin being like, oh, like that was awesome. Like it's fun. Like I have both depending on what clip they see.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So like I'm just trying to, I'm like, look, there's a lot of people out there who think like me, I'm sure, right? Even if it's
Most people are in the middle.
not, but like interested in the things I'm interested in,
Yeah.
think like me. Even if there's 500,000, like,
Yep.
okay, let's go find them. We only
Right.
need 10,000.
Got it.
You know
No,
what I mean?
I
So,
get it.
Yeah.
I don't go down a political route hardly ever. Not that I shy away from it.
Dude, you voted for Hillary. Stop.
Yeah. We don't.
You got leave.
We don't go down that path ever. But like, if it came up, I would probably talk about it. I'm not so much about politics as I am. If you talk about an issue, I'll be glad to talk about what I think about an issue.
Right, yeah.
I think most politics are fucking liars and thieves and shit
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And I don't think they are going to do anything for you. I think if you want change in your community, get the fuck up and you go do it. Support your community and build from there. Clean your own backyard. Make sure that's spotless. Go help your community. If you're waiting on somebody else to help you, you're going to be fucked because they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
As long as they're making money.
What's John Fetterman going to do? It's like, dude, who the fuck is, I don't even know who that is. Like, he's the guy with the
Same.
goatee. It's like,
We try not to get into it. If we talk about a subject, I'll be glad to talk about a subject. Or I'll say I don't know, because there's certain things I don't know. I'm not going to take a hard stance on everything. If I believe it, then understand that that's my opinion. If I don't know it, I'm very well aware that I can't know everything. And if I hear
very
certain
wise.
things,
Yeah.
It's very
and I
wise.
hear things that are contrary to what I think, and it makes sense, then I will change my opinion. Like, that's what people should do. They, like I said earlier, they have such an identity with what they believe that, like, they won't even listen to something else. And that's a problem.
100%. Oh man, where did I go with that? So I don't think that anything that I'm going to contribute politically is going to affect society.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
I
already
agree.
cloudy. It's already so, you can get that shit anywhere. It's on CNN, Fox. You can get all the divisive bullshit you possibly want.
Yep.
If you want to go really far, I'll turn on MSNBC. You can find all the wacky.
Yeah.
You can find all the wacky shit you possibly
Infowars.
want. Yeah, whatever. On the other side, exactly right. Alex.
Yeah.
You can do all that stuff. My thing is, like, I don't intentionally do that. I do sit down with Rocco Koza. We created another little series within the podcast called How We See It, and him and I bounce around topics every 2 weeks. And it's really, we come at it, we're both kind of waiting in the middle. So we kind of look at it just like, sometimes comedically. We're not very funny people, but it turns out that way.
Yeah.
It's life, right?
Politics is hilarious.
And I didn't think
Yeah.
that would be wanted by anybody, and I never wanted to do it. And then we got asked by some people to do 1 or 2 episodes, and it just became so much fun. And it got traction. We just kept doing it. But it's basically 50 minutes of us just like going at it, like picking the 9 biggest things that happen every 2 weeks and just going at it. You know? But anyways, I've only had it a couple times where I had to remind people that before they come on the show, I say, look, we're not a political show.
Right.
Like, I am probably very much indifferent to most things, unabashedly indifferent. But my on social issues, I'm center left. I tell people, and on economic, I'm center right, but I'm still in the center.
Right.
So you're not, if you're looking for me to root for your fucking team, I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
So do you really want to have this conversation with me?
Right.
Because you might not like what you get back.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have had to tell people, look, there's plenty of us to talk about.
Yeah.
I want to hear about your life. I don't want to give a shit about what flag you're flying.
Well, with a lot of
You know?
political things, like you have to be far on one side or far on the other.
You don't have
get,
to be anything.
No, I'm saying like to get like a lot of
Views.
people think to get the views,
Yeah.
you have to have it one way or another. That way you can either agree with it or be outraged by it, but either way you're getting a click.
I had
Yeah.
someone give me that advice. They're like, be polarizing. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, what? So I'm not
Yeah.
supposed to talk about something and think like, how do I be polarizing here? It's like, why not just say what you want? If you're interesting, you'll be successful. If not, you'll stop. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really interesting thing to do if you're going to. I'm very authentic. I think I am. That I leave it all on the table.
Right.
Even for real estate, when I first became a realtor, the people were like, "Well, you probably want to tone it down a little, Eric. You know, you don't want to wear jeans. You want to buy some suits, and you know, you want to." They've been telling me
You
how
want
to
to blend in and
telling
be a
me,
realtor.
yeah,
X.
telling me
Yeah.
how to be this person. I'm like, listen. I said, I only know one way to be, and that's myself. I'm not for everybody. I'm an acquired taste.
exactly. Yeah.
But I'm good with that.
Mhm.
And if you're not, and if
So
I'm
is
not
a
for you,
McAllen
that's
17.
awesome.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care. So I'll find my people.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
and they're going to get an incredible experience with me, and they're going to get all the loyalty imaginable. They will be all good.
Yeah.
Right? I can't pretend to be someone I'm not. This show is about authenticity. So if somebody is truly a Trumper and he bleeds it and wears the tie and the funny hat and all that shit, and he could be authentic and come in here and spit all kinds of stuff, or you get a Bernie fanatic come on here and do the same thing. That would be authentic.
Yeah.
But it's just not interesting.
Right.
It's nothing
No.
that I find interesting. And again, I'm not trying to please an audience. I'm trying to find a conversation that leaves me a better person than I was yesterday. If maybe not emotionally, sometimes just intellectually.
Yeah.
That's not going to give it to me.
To me, the
know?
most unattractive thing about those people too is that like if you know one thing they believe, you know everything else.
Yeah.
Like they're never
Yeah.
gonna say something surprising to you.
And half the things they think they believe, they can't even articulate to
They don't
you.
know why.
They don't, exactly. And
Yeah.
that's where I think we're all screwed up joining a team.
It's more fun talking to someone where you're like, I wonder how they feel about that, and then you find out. Where it's like it's unexpected, as opposed to like, oh, like you have AOC tatted on your chest, so you believe this, and this. You know what I mean? There's no.
Let me ask you this. Why do you think we want to be labeled so bad? Like, how did this happen?
We need a sense of identity.
Yeah. It's like you want to just be I don't feel this personally, but I feel like people feel like they want to be a part of a team so bad and they want this community that they almost pick a side.
Okay, so I get that, but why? What has happened in society where now we want to belong to a team so bad?
the safety of the pack.
Because you're
So
not.
you don't think that's really a new thing? You think it's always been that way?
I do, kind of.
Yeah.
Think about like
at least smaller groups, maybe nomadic, maybe whatever kind of tribe. I don't think you ever see like the individual human beings breaking off. At least the ones that I was taught of. I mean, you see whatever groups. Exactly, they're groups of people moving. I feel like deep down people need that kind of sense of community, one way or another. Like to
Okay,
feel
that's
that
fair.
to
That's
feel that
fair.
group. And the ones that don't are kind of weird. If we're
Yeah.
being honest, like I don't.
Yeah, so I made a great career out of creating very unique guitars for people and letting people have something that's limited so they feel special. I
Right.
felt people like that. Now, obviously, it's proven to me that Americans love that, right? I have something my neighbor doesn't have.
yeah,
And now, when I look at the social climate, now they're so quick to join the team. So I got these two views of Americana. Like, they want to feel special. They want that individual. They want that bragging rights. They want that individualism. But now they're so quick to join a team and to be part of something. Like, who the fuck is America?
Yeah.
I'm real confused on this because I don't understand how we can be both parts of the same person.
there's no America. There's two countries.
Yeah.
That's
It's divided.
Yeah, there's two countries. It's
Do you really think that?
Yeah. Like I think it's like you ever ride when you learn to ride a bike and you're going, and then the pedal gets too far, turn one way, and then you gotta go back hard the other way and back hard, and it's like eventually you just
It wobbles.
Yeah, it's like that's where we're at now, where it's like the pendulum just swings so hard each way. Like we went from Donald Trump to Joe Biden. Like it's just it's gonna keep going.
There's two extremes.
It's like we're already out of control. You know what I mean?
We went from lunacy to senility.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't think that it's going to go back to the middle all of a sudden. I think it's going to keep getting more outrageous, and that pendulum's just going to keep getting momentum and swinging further. Or hopefully somebody steps in and sees something. I don't know. But I feel like we were all saying, like, the thing that you're sold to on cable news and stuff, that everybody believes this.
It's an echo
That's
chamber.
what you're saying on this, because that's what's going to get views.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy when news comes down to monetary things, to views and shit. Like, then what are you doing? You're just getting what clicks. The clickbait all the time. And I mean, people aren't all like that. If we do this, like we're sitting right now, if you have a conversation, and I like having conversation with people I disagree with.
Of course.
That genuinely haven't a reason, because there's so many people you disagree with and you say, why do you believe that? And they don't really have an answer.
Chris, you nailed it.
And then you're saying, okay, so now you're just echoing what somebody else said. You don't believe it. You're just regurgitating some bullshit somebody else said. Do you actually believe it? And then people don't want to, sit down and think, what do I actually believe? Because that can be scary sometimes, and they don't want to have that deep dive.
Or you
Sorry to, go on a whole.
Or you get the flip side of it. You have someone that does disagree with you and can back up their beliefs, and then I feel like I take something away from it.
I want to hear that.
I love that.
I love it too.
Doesn't
Like
happen
I want to
being
hear
proved
it.
wrong.
Right. Like I want to hear.
Wrong, love it.
Well, so many times on this show, like if you ask me, are you the same person? My first show was was March of 19. So am I the same person March of 19 as I am August of 2022? The answer is absolutely not. Now, there was a pandemic in there, so we're all a little different. Yeah. But intellectually, I mean, I've just been exposed to so many different viewpoints. I mean, I've had, the friendships I've had professors from all spectrums here, like conservative economists have been on this show. I've had liberal psychology professors. I've heard everything, and man, they've got good points. It's like it questions my reality. Often I go home like, wow, I never looked at it that way. See, so that's what I've been trying to do. Now, I don't want to do every show with like that type of stuff, because it's just I don't want to do that. No human should have to, but having that mixed in the fray, it keeps me on my toes. Yeah. And realize that the shit I ingest sometimes, is a big echo chamber.
Well, it's like you said, they both had good points. It's like, that's what people don't get, is we need both to make it work.
Yeah.
It's like if we just had a completely conservative, like, marine state of like, it's all just army dudes and people who have like the blue American flag tatted on their arm and shit like that. It's like we turn like Sparta.
It's the yin and the yang, right? You don't have good without evil or left without right. You need to have the balance.
If you had all liberals running everything, it'd be taken over like that by a neighboring country. There'd be no army. Everyone would be high and shit. You know what I mean?
So it's all conservatives. We'd have a nuclear war.
Yeah, they'd be throwing weak babies off the cliff like Sparta. You know what I mean? It'd be like you need both to have a society, and it's like people don't understand that. They just want to attack. And it's like, let's just chill. Let's just enjoy the differences we have in each other.
I think even if everybody did agree on something, they'd find a reason to immediately separate somehow.
Yes.
Because I feel like once people get too safe and get too complacent, like I was saying, they start finding a reason. Like we were just saying with COVID, like, okay, you go home and now we're all separated from everybody. Then you kind of start picking your own scabs, and you're like, okay, let me find. Not saying everyone does, but you see it. Like, if you go on social media during COVID, you're like, all these conspiracy theories, all of these things, all of a sudden. Now, all of a sudden, aliens are in charge of Netflix or whatever the fuck. I don't know, but
I didn't hear that one. That's awesome.
I made that up right now. That's not a thing.
I think Norm Macdonald.
It's possible.
I think it was Norm Macdonald had a great bit who's like, they should release 100,000 lines into America, because if you're running for your life, you're not worried about what gender you are, like something like that. Like things become so much less important when you are struggle.
It is.
You know what I mean? Like Somalia doesn't have the social issues we have because they're just trying to survive from day to day. You know what I mean?
Right.
We have it so easy we can worry about
Well,
all
we have
this.
elevated like ridiculous things to become massively important in the ecosphere of the country. And
The
it's really
TV,
not.
Right.
I'm by no means wealthy. The TV I have in my living room would have cost $10,000 for my parents when I was born.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, just like things that were so out of hand are so affordable now for people that like even in this country, like the worst off still occasionally have a cell phone. Like that's
Right.
Poor people have an iPhone.
Every panhandler
I
I
see your
know
green
has
text.
oftentimes has better tennis shoes than me,
Right.
and they're carrying an iPhone.
Yeah.
I don't, not all of them. But
Also,
I mean, a lot
drugs
of
are expensive. So
Drugs are expensive.
They are.
Ford does.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Well, it was great being on here one time.
Not at all. So, anything surprise you in this podcast journey?
Yeah, I was so not funny. Like, I didn't realize how bad I was at like being funny. like from this point to like doing podcasts regularly. Like, oh my god! Like, I listened back to my first show. I'm like, you piece of shit. Like, you talentless fuck. You know what I mean? So
that's what we were all saying.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. And you should. I deserve
We've
it.
been saying it.
But yeah, I feel like this has developed me so much more as like in comedy.
Yeah.
I'm very appreciative about that. I didn't expect that to happen.
I agree. I feel like I've learned a lot about myself. And I feel like you do learn a lot about yourself when you do watch yourself back and you're like, you see your mannerisms and you see the way you talk and the language you use and the words you repeat. And like, you just learn so much about yourself. For me, I feel like it's been a personal growth. I feel like each episode, I feel like it gets a little better and you learn more. So I feel like I've learned a lot about myself.
Absolutely. I feel like I learned things that I never thought I would have learned.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought I would have learned sound editing or video editing or anything like that. And as tedious and time consuming as it can be, like I do love doing that part. Like I never thought I would have. And I like creating something. And like I said earlier, like being around like-minded people and stuff like that. I wouldn't have ever experienced that. I would have never done that if I didn't do this. And it makes me more confident in other things. Like I'm accomplishing a task every single week. Like I'm choosing to do that. I'm choosing to put myself through the stress, through the anxiety that I get every single week, going and communicating with all these people and coordinating all these things. And like I don't know anything about it. I'm just going as I go because I feel like, you know what, I can piss around and try to figure it out, or I can just go and try to figure it out. But I'd rather have something on paper. And like you learn every day, and it's exciting, and I couldn't be happier with doing that process.
So, video. We're all doing video podcasting. Some people told me that it's called a vlog. Some people have told me it's called a video podcast. Some people have told me it's called a web show. I don't know what the fuck it is. I still don't know if what I'm doing qualifies as a podcast. I was telling people I was doing a talk show, and I would release it in video form, but also release an audio podcast version. That's how I would differentiate what the hell I was doing.
Yeah.
So how did y'all decide that you wanted to do video as opposed to an audio only experience?
I really didn't want to. Like I like audio. Like even on the podcasts I watch or listen to now, I have the YouTube premium. So I can just turn the screen off my phone, put it in my pocket, and go about my day and do shit. Like, I almost never watch the video part. And I think it goes back to, like, when I was a kid with the radio. Like, I just enjoy, like, that broadcast, just listening to it, imagining shit. But the move, I think, like, probably people like Joe Rogan was a big reason this happened, is, like, you connect more when you see people's faces and the inflection of their voice. You know, you can see... You can just see more intention. It's just a better connective experience. And like what's crazy, like people like Howard Stern, like 20 years ago, added video to his radio show. Opie and Anthony used to do what's called Pow Talk. It's not around anymore, but it was like kind of like a Skype. But they had a video part. So there's something to it. I don't get it. Like if I could, I would just do audio. That's my preferred mode. But I do video because I have to grow the show.
I agree
Okay.
100%. Like
Really?
the only reason I have the video is because I've had people tell me like, "Oh, I love listening to podcasts, but I wish I could see something." Like, okay,
What do they want to see us.
yeah.
Yeah.
What you guys, look at me. What do you guys see me talk?
Yeah.
Like, just listen.
Yeah.
If I could strictly do the audio, it would cut out so much hassle in my life because of all the stuff that I do, but I want it to look good at the same time. Audio is so much better, but like I was saying, like with TikTok and stuff that I hate, it's just another platform. So am I, it's something that I want to hit, home on each one. Like, okay, if there's this platform, don't half-ass it. Find a way to make it work. Like I'm over making excuses with things. Like, okay, maybe you don't like it, but it's still a platform, so find a way to make it work. I mean, not sell in the integrity of the show or change it for anything, but you can find things from the show if you're willing to look and you want to make it, find a way. I always think you should find a way, and I know things work against everybody, but find a way. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
I mean, I agree with that. I think that's why I hired a producer, because I knew that I needed a video component. I feel like you have to have an audio and a video component to be in this. It can't just be audio and it just can't be video. You have to have both.
Yeah.
And honestly, since I've done video, my video does 1,000 times better than my audio does, which is surprising to me because I think we can all agree. Like, I prefer audio over video.
Really?
I like audio.
Wow. Like enjoying
Mine's the
podcasts.
opposite.
I like enjoying it and listening to it, but people like that video component. I had a listener tell me, like, I feel like I'm in the room with you and your guest. And I like that. It's just a feeling that I enjoy. So people like the video aspect of it.
You need it for clips.
Yeah, and that too.
That's the main reason I think you need it.
Yeah.
Because for myself personally, I like listening to podcasts while I'm running, while I'm working out, or driving.
While I'm
like,
working.
I don't have a screen in front of me. And that's what makes podcasts so appealing, because it's like, okay, I'm driving to work. I drive like 35 minutes to work every day, to and from, or 45 minutes, or whatever it is. I want to listen to something that is more than just the same Van Halen song I've heard 800 times. Nothing against that, but like I'd like to be stimulated somewhat to something new. I love Eddie Van Halen. Sweet.
Who doesn't?
But like I want to learn some more things. I want to, learn. I love Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'll listen to things about astrophysics because I have no idea. I like to listen to things that I don't know.
But you can do it in your car. With just
But
audio.
right, but I can do that. I can do it while I'm running. I like the efficiency and the multitask ability, if that's not even a word, but
Yeah. Oh wow!
I just think there's so many.
I knew
there's
this was
so
going
much
to be the
to
reaction.
use.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I think it's fascinating. So I ingest a lot of podcast material audibly when I run, work out, whatever, walk generally, but
Power walk.
yeah, I do power walk with a weight vest on. Don't laugh. No, I don't do the mall. I don't do the mall stride.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. But I'm out there doing my
You
thing.
get the Velcro shoes on.
Nah, the
You
white
gotta-
ones.
Ankle
The
weights.
white ones. The
Yeah.
what are they? Brooks. The two flips on them.
Yeah.
Twin
Hell
flaps.
yeah.
Bright white.
Do you have
No,
a pair?
I haven't gone.
Hall
that
and
far.
Oates on.
White on white.
Yeah.
Come on, I'm not that old, for Christ's sake. Holy shit, man. I'm in better shape than most of these jack wagons out there.
Better shape than me.
So-
Yeah,
Not
me too.
wrong.
Yeah.
But I will say, I wanted to emulate the look and feel of Rogan, but just in Pittsburgh. That was my goal. I didn't want to be Joe Rogan or be the Joe Rogan podcast, but I wanted that look and feel.
Yeah. He inspired
Somewhat, yeah, because
Yeah.
I love I like to watch the conversation.
you. Right.
Doesn't mean I don't ingest a lot of audio stuff too, but there's an intangible there. And
Yeah.
that's why this studio looks like this, because yes, I want you all to think it's cool and people feel comfortable, but when you see it online, that's, we caught viewers right away, as superficial as this is, because we were able to say, hey,
Oh, yeah.
we don't know who the fuck that is or what they're talking about, but that is unbelievable. What the hell is that?
Yeah.
That's in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that little thing
Yep.
was kind of like,
That was my
it was
reaction.
a little in right away.
I was like, oh, he's like the Joe Rogan of Pittsburgh. Because
Yep.
you're not like...
That's the connection
You
I
are not
made.
like Joe
I agree.
Rogan in any way.
Visually.
But it's like you have a similar format to his
Right.
podcast.
It's the format.
But what makes it different is what you're interested in, as opposed to what he's interested in.
Yeah, but there's some similarities there too, though. I mean, Rogan's formula is pretty interesting. I don't get the MMA thing but I've had the MMA guys in Pittsburgh on here,
Right.
Yeah.
because I figured it's got half the country digs that stuff, so why?
Yeah.
I want to find out why.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's elements of it I dig because of how interesting the guests were. But like UFOs are like, love that shit. I've always been a physics nut, so I got theoretical physics. So Rogan and I do have similar You know, I mean, for the most, it's kind of corny. We're the same age, so
Yeah.
it isn't. That's not too surprising. We both love rock and roll music, and we both, you know, trying to take care of ourselves. So I mean, there's a lot of similarities there.
Is he one of the bigger podcast influences you have?
Man, from a format standpoint, he's the biggest.
Yeah.
Although I'm aware of like Adam Carolla.
He's the one that kind of got me into it.
Yeah.
I love Carolla. I listen to him, and I listen to some NFL ones, but Carolla was the main one I listened to.
The ones that are branched off from Rogan, I've paid attention to, especially Lex Friedman. Lex has got a completely different mindset than me, but he's willing to go deep, and he's willing to be even a better interviewer, believe it or not, than Joe. He doesn't, because Lex isn't there for the funny moment. He's really going to bore you.
Yeah.
If you really don't pay attention. It's like a lecture in high school. You know, you're not going to get it unless you're really fucking in there paying attention.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tried to listen to him and Elon, and I was like, holy shit, I'm dumb.
He'll take it.
Like, I had no idea.
He'll take it to a next level for
Yeah.
sure. Not all of his shows. And again, that's the thing the public doesn't understand, because again, we want to be all in or it's no fucking good. Well, no, you need to be selective. And you know, I don't listen to all Rogan shows. I
Me
pick
neither.
the people that I find interesting. And if
Same.
I'm 20 minutes in and I'm not getting anything out of it, I don't waste my time.
Same.
Right?
I agree.
Yep.
But there's moments. I
Yep.
don't expect somebody to listen to every even mom. Don't mom. I don't expect anybody to listen to the entire thing or listen to all the shows.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's the beauty of the format.
Exactly.
For me, I can't say, you know, I just think that we're having intentional conversations, and that is not what we do we're like this all day.
Yeah.
And everything's just, I hate it. I
Yeah.
fucking
Maybe.
hate it.
I think about that all the time, even to like my experience as a kid, like going through the world to now. It was like I used to just like do things because there was nothing else to do because I didn't have a phone to go on. Like I remember before I even had a cell phone, like I would draw and I would do other
Yeah.
shit. And I feel like a lot of that time gets filled up now with like watching fucking TikTok and stupid shit like that. You know what I mean? Like I feel like the distraction takes away people's interest in doing other stuff.
Oh, I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
I agree. And being present. So a few weeks ago, I turned my phone off for the first time ever for like 2 days.
Damn.
I turned it off.
Wow.
I went camping with my family, put it in my car, didn't touch it for 2 days. It felt so good. Like I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did, but I felt so present in the moment. I remember looking at my dad and I was like, I feel like a kid again. I feel like there's no obligation. I'm not worried about what anyone else is doing. Like I am just in this moment right now,
Right.
and this is just amazing.
Right.
And I hadn't felt that way in a long time.
I bet.
And I needed that.
Yeah.
I think people need to do that. I think it's very
I
important to
wish
do.
I could.
It's honestly, I highly, even for a day, like it's so freeing.
I think people look at social media and kind of skew like the way they see things, because I would love to break away from that, and I think people, you know, are too, you know, I need to see what everybody else is doing, the comparison, and when you see what other people are doing via Instagram, which is just, you know, that snippet, then you compare, and then when you're comparing things with other people, like you hear comparisons to thief of joy. And I believe that when you see other things like, oh, well, I don't have that. If you have your phone away and you're just enjoying nature, which I feel like is the best thing ever, sit next to a tree and just hang out with some friends, man, with a fire. It doesn't get better than that.
It doesn't.
And you don't need a screen for that. But I think when I'm at my happiest is when the screen's gone, when the people are around me. And that's like the truest part of it. It's all fake. When you see other things and you give it a like, maybe you get the serotonin rush for some people. But it's all fake.
It is, and I agree that like it is a necessary thing that we have to do as podcasters, right? Like we have to be on our phones, we have to be posting constantly. Like that's how we're getting our content out to our audiences and growing our audience. But sometimes it's just nice to take a break.
See, I am old enough to remember the before times. Before
Yeah.
before the web in 95,
Yeah.
I had already, because when the web hit 95, 96, I was 30. So all my 20s were spent, you know, without the internet,
Yeah.
which was fucking fantastic. You know, I mean, I didn't think it at the time. You know, when I got into my 30s, I'm going, man, if I would have had this 5 years ago, you know. But looking back on it now, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't have that shit when I was a kid. Like I feel bad my children have to live in this world where my son got his first iPhone when he was in 8th grade, right? So he's had this iPhone since the 8th grade. No wonder he's
It's an intoxicating feeling. Like, like when you're binging, like eating, and you eat like a bunch of Chinese food and you're like, oh God, like this feels good, but it's so bad for you. It's like, that's how I feel when I have a video go viral. I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, I know it's not good. I'm like, oh, this is so gross, but it feels so good. Like, keep refreshing the stats and shit. Like, it's not a healthy thing. Like, I think it's too much.
But that's a new
stimuli.
comparison. That's a new comparison. So if the next video doesn't hit that, now it's a failure.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
it's a weird mindset. Like
Chase that high.
Is it
Almost.
high? I guess.
I think
It's
for a lot of
definitely-
people.
I
It's
agree.
definitely a lot of, maybe not for you, but I think you might not be in the majority in this situation. Maybe it's 70-30, maybe it's 50-50, but I think there are a handful of people that absolutely.
I mean, it's like a proven thing. It's like the happy chemicals are going off when that happens. I wish I
I'm
could plug out of that
dopamine.
matrix.
I'm
I
sure.
wish I could plug out of it, but
I'm sure.
It's
Well, it's
not
an
going
achievement too.
Yeah,
Right? I mean,
yeah.
there's an element of like, well, I made that happen.
anywhere. Right.
Right.
So that's not that in itself. I don't think is entirely bad, but it's just the chase of it. It's probably not healthy.
No, it's
No.
like it's not a like, oh, I did a bunch of housework and now my house is looking great and it's cool. That's a different type of achievement feeling. This is like
tangible.
It's an intoxicating, like, like it's just, it's not good. Like, it's
No.
not good. It feels good, but it's not good for you. Is the feeling you get.
Interesting.
Bathing in a fountain of chocolate kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like when you're like laying on the couch with your blood sugar's at 0 now because it crashed after you just ate like 3 pounds of sesame chicken. It's that feeling of like, I feel amazing right now, but I think I'm also dying a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heart palpitations are normal.
Right.
Yeah.
Who
But
do
it's
you-
here to stay.
Who do you think in your lifetime, looking at podcasting or the genre of radio, who do you think are the best interviewers that you ever listened to? Just purely for the interviewing skill.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Rogan is the baseline, like probably the most popular, where he like innovated the long form shit. You know
don't
what I mean?
think Stern did?
Stern's
I think
an amazing
Stern's-
interviewer.
I was going
Yeah.
to say Stern.
He might be the best interview I've ever been exposed to.
Yeah.
I can't stand the guy. But
Stern's a little bit before I listen full time. So, like I was just saying, I listen to Adam Carolla a lot. I love his kind of thing. He kind of starts with the bass, goes from there, and there's a little bit more of the mindset, kind of like where you grew up, how did that affect your life, and I like that, and I think I'm influenced by that because I like kind of that. So when I have people on, I like kind of knowing their background, where they grew up, what their family life was like, because I feel like that shapes people more than you might think. And I like learning more about people every single day.
Yeah.
And I think that's so cool.
Stern might be the GOAT because he interviews celebrities I don't give a shit about, but I'll listen because something interesting is going to come. Like, he's going to dig into something interesting. Like, you're right. I didn't think about that. He's an amazing interviewer, Stern.
yeah, I think from the skill standpoint.
Yeah.
You know, another one too, which is not in the comedy front, but he is also a pioneer of podcasting and is a great interviewer, and that's that Tim Ferriss. You familiar
Yeah.
with Tim Ferriss?
Yeah. mhm.
No.
He wrote a book in the 2000s or late 90s called The 6-Hour Work Week or The 5-Hour Work
Yeah,
Week.
and like the 10-minute body or something like
Yeah,
that.
and he really, and again, whether you believe all the essence of those books or not, he created a podcast, got to be 12, 15 years ago, and it's big. I mean, if you go like the top podcast,
Yeah.
Tim Ferriss's is up there. There's a name for the podcast. Maybe it's the Tim Ferriss podcast. I don't know, but his interview skills are refined and really good. Yeah, it's something. He's something to behold.
And you're right, Lex is a great interviewer. Like, some of my favorite interviews I've seen from comedians I like were from him. It's not funny at all, really, but you're right. He gets into people and gets them to reveal things about themselves and get deep. And he just sits back too. And I feel like almost like his silence compels people to keep going deeper. You know what I mean? Where most people, like, their social cue would stop them. He's just like awkwardly, like, on the spectrum silence. And then people dig more out of themselves, you know?
Is there any skill set that you needed to refine, or you recognized that you needed to refine in your tool bag when you first started, or maybe you're still refining it? Is there any weakness in your game from re-listening to the way you interview and so forth? Anything that you've had to consciously be aware of that you're willing to talk about?
Every time a show ends, I think it's shit. This was the worst thing I've ever put out.
Yeah.
Why are you even doing this? You're wasting your time. Nobody gives a shit what you have to say. That's how I end every single one. And then I listen to it. I'm like, okay, well, maybe some people won't think it's that bad. And then I'm like, okay, that was okay. But every time I go in, I have this kind of negative. I think it's going to be the worst. And then, I'm usually pleasantly surprised.
So when you listen, what bugs you?
I'm self-conscious. My number one thing is I'm self-conscious about my interviewing. Because, like, I start out, and I think a lot of interviewing, and not to take any, like, the onus off of me, but, like, you have to be willing to be interviewed at the same time and kind of go along with it. Like, I will write index cards of questions. I hope I never look at them. I write them because I am full of anxiety, and if I don't do them, I will be like, okay, what the hell am I going to talk about? Ideally, I don't look at them, and most times I don't, because I'd rather just go with the conversation because it's natural. But I do think certain times, like, you're on a podcast, we're here for a conversation, give into it. Like, and I want to be better at interviewing because I think that's a weak spot for me, but maybe I'm being a harsh critic. But I think sometimes it's give and take.
I personally, what I'll do is I like to look at the person's social media because we live on social media. Mm-hmm. So I try to watch that person's Instagram stories. I look at their feed. I look at their posts. And I try to curate my questions from that. And I do the same as Chris. I do have questions prepared so that way I have something to fall back on. I hope I don't have to use it. I hope the conversation's natural enough that I don't ever have to go back to it. But it's there if I need it. But I feel like kind of learning about the person through their social media is the best way personally for me to get ready for that interview. It's worked for me. Mm-hmm. And that's what I prefer to do. Okay. I feel like you learn the most about someone that way.
Yeah. I had to, I noticed I would get into a subject and then something would take me out of that subject. Like something I said would then direct me out of that subject. And I was like, all right, so I need to get more comfortable, like take a breath and sit in the subject and go deeper and like spend more time in that subject and go at it from different angles and try to pick more meat off that bone before letting something you say take you in another direction. You know what I mean?
1,000%.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Because then it's like Spitfire, it's hard to follow. Whereas like you take, like if it's Alex Jones, sitting in that and just going through every angle you can on that guy and seeing what you can get out of that. Because I realized when I started using this to write stand-up, I'm like, all right, like if I change subjects every 2 minutes, I'm not going into depth on anything. Like I'm just doing like an ADD jump throughout the episode as opposed to like, how can I dig every piece of interesting info I can out of this?
I think you just have to do enough of them.
It's experience.
It's really experience based. I will tell you that ADD reference though is interesting because I wouldn't be too hard on yourself for doing that because that jumping around is probably going to be the way most of the monkey brains that are actually listening to your podcast think anyway. So
for sure,
they're probably going to think they're comfortable with that.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, you're probably right.
You know?
Yeah,
but at the minimum, I agree with you.
In myself, though, like what I enjoy viewing, like the comedians I like,
absolutely,
are people who go like deep,
of course,
and like they'll find like Louis C.K. To me, think what you want about him. To me, I think he's the He's the best technically sound comedian of all time.
I actually agree 100%.
When it comes to science of comedy, he's the best, and he can like go in and he pulls stuff out of subjects. You're like, holy fuck. And like all the greats do that. Chappelle, and they all do that. So like, I'm like, all right, it's going to help me in my podcast and my stand up. Like I need to, that was one thing where I'm like, all right, I need to do that. Like it's not negotiable.
So, okay. So, this is my answer is going to be a little different. So I get all the strategy stuff. That's what you guys are, you're talking about self-doubt, Chris, and Cory, you're talking about strategy in terms of like how you order the questions that you ask. I initially, when I got on here, I had a lot of nerves. I knew I could do it because I had a radio show for 5 years before this. I know how to get in front of a mic. I'm fine.
Right.
I'm not a performer, but in a sense, I kind of am. You can get in the radio. You have to. I mean, you're broadcasting out to thousands of people.
For sure.
If you're just comfortable behind a mic, you're past a lot of people.
100%.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to understand this thing, I was realizing I wanted a conversation. So what did I do? So when you and I are having a conversation, you're saying something, I'm giving all these cues and I'm paying attention. Oh yeah, I would say things like, I would say something and you start talking and I would agree with you. I go, oh yeah. And I was like verbalizing affirmation about things. Yeah. I realized that does not come off good audibly.
I do it all the time.
Or evil. I'm still making that, probably made that mistake tonight. But I was really engaged. And there were times where I would find an association with my guest and I'd want to tell my little story to blend in with their story. And my little story became more than a 15 second. It became like a 30 second to a minute to 2 minutes. And all of a sudden, wait a second, I invited them here, so I had to moderate myself there.
100%.
And I got through this with some harsh criticisms from some of my friends initially on, you need to work on this. But I never understood the impact of how right they were. Mm-hmm. Even after I moderated it and became better at it, until I was interviewed on a couple places, nothing related to either one of you. I'd be honest with you if I was, where I went for interviews were nice people, humbled to be there. But I'll share with you that I was stepped on throughout the entire process. And I get asked to be on podcasts because of the Boogie Street thing, I get it. It is what it is. I'm a pretty bold person, so they want to know how my brain's wired. I'm flattered by that. It's flattered. Yeah. So I get into they ask me about my history, and they go pretty much in a cookie cutter kind of thing. Yeah. So it isn't like I'm not prepared. But as soon as I would get into it, I'd start and then they're like talking over me. And then I realized, wow, now I truly understand what it's like to be spoken over top of. Now I can see as a guest, that's a little off-putting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when it happens to you.
Right. You sit on the other side.
It's a fucking thing. Yeah. And I remember it happened to me recently. Nicest host and all that bullshit. All good. Cool place. I was honored to be there. All that. But he literally stepped on me every chance. Now, he didn't do it vindictively. The furthest thing from that, I don't think he understands he's doing it.
Was it nerves? Because I find myself in that position.
I don't know if I can't. You'd have to ask him. Yeah. I think it's kind of like when I would say something, the affirmation would be there, but then like he would use, and it's he would use that what I said to then tell me his story or tell me and it was. I said, wow, I probably did some of that when I first started my podcast. I never really looked for it, but I bet you I did. I bet you I talked to other people, and that's why it's important, I think, as a host to step back and let the guest be the guest.
Yeah.
Let the guest bring the content.
If they're awesome, you get credit for it.
100%.
Yeah.
Let them talk.
Right.
Yeah. But when you really don't realize the impact of it unless you're on the other side. Mm-hmm. It was really apparent to me the last two places I've been on podcasts. They're wonderful people and nothing personal. It's just that I found myself somehow competing to complete my thought because it isn't trying to win. It's just if I don't complete that thought, I'm going to look like an idiot because I'm going to lose my train of thought.
Right.
When someone's asking you questions, you want to create the timeline in your head as you move forward, right?
Yeah.
If they're stepping on you and they're not doing it vindictively, they probably aren't even recognizing they're doing it. Because in conversation, I think if you're not filming, it's very participatory on both sides. But this is not really an average conversation. When you're filming a podcast, conversational style, but as a host, you got to learn when to keep your fucking mouth shut.
And like you said earlier, like not a lot of people have conversations like this where it is so long form and like the entire goal is to finish your complete thought and then react to that. Like you're walked into what the norm is today where it's just like blah, 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 blah. Everything is just a way to get around to what you really want to say.
1,000,000%.
You know what I mean?
That's exactly right.
And it's just like something that people don't practice. When do you ever talk for someone for an hour where it's like you genuinely just want to see what they think? I have friends like that where it's like, hey, you want to go get a drink? And I'm like, sure. And it's an hour of like their shit. Or like they'll ask me a question and it just writes back to them. I'm like, fucking hell, dude. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, why am I here? I'm just here to listen to you. Like, I'm not charging you a therapy fee.
Let's go have a beer so I can just tell you all my problems.
Exactly. Yeah. But that is, I think, the baseline for a lot of people today. It's just that ADD shit,
I think so. And that's what I think from a skill set, listening, doing your own editing, listening and playing it back in your head is so positive. It might sound like a major pain in the ass, but you do learn. I mean, I've had some cringeworthy moments on my show where like, oh man, I just Eric, shut this. It was early on. I've kind of moderated it, but like, oh, shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
Just shut up. Let them talk.
I agree. When I listen back, like I said, after every episode, I'm like, that was the worst thing I've ever recorded. Why do you even speak? But then the next day I'll listen to it, and then like small things. I noticed that because from listening to other people who I respect doing interviews, because I know that's kind of a weak point for me, so I should improve on that. So I listened back to it. I'm like, yeah, I did speak over that person because, and then I know how I thought at the time. I was just antsy. I wanted to say this thing. I wanted to relate to them, and I wanted them to understand. But I did speak over them. So like that's something you do have to adapt. Yep. And I think that's important from listening back to it. Mm-hmm. And I think it all goes back to giving a shit about the production that you're putting out.
Yeah, and I think it's important to have people around you early on that can tell you when you're fucking up. And honest. You can take the criticism.
Yeah.
You know, like there was no first 10 shows, 15 shows, there was no lack of folks that wanted to tell me how badly I was fucking doing. Yeah, and giving me some solid reasons why that I luckily, listened to. And again, I'm not perfect. I mean, I'm going to make bad mistakes every show.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. It's being human.
Yeah, and that's everyone. Like, I remember when I first, discovered Joe Rogan podcast, I don't know, 2017 or some shit like that. I went back in YouTube, when he was just on YouTube, and he has, his, first shows archived, and I went back and listened to, his first 10. I'm like, dude, this fucking blows.
Yeah.
This guy's horrible at this, you know what I mean? And he's the best podcaster alive today. So, there's a learning curve, for everyone.
2,000 shows will do that.
Yeah.
Crazy, yeah.
I mean, this is show 289.
Okay.
Since March of 19, so I'm pumping them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was...
That is a lot in that time
That's
frame.
so much.
Yeah, because I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we're not doing an audio only. If I was doing an audio only, I could do one a day. Because it's so easy. You just crank it out. And then, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But the video adds a level of complexity.
And
it's beautiful though,
With podcasting, it's not like, oh, I'm working and I'm putting in a lot of physical, it's enjoyable.
Yeah,
it's cathartic at the same time. Like it's almost like it's therapy to speak to somebody when they are interested and when they're giving back the same energy that you're putting.
If they're in it like you are.
The podcast actually overtook stand up for me, like an enjoyment. Like I enjoy the podcast more. Like stand up, I don't have a goal in my life to be the best stand up of all time anymore. If you're a stand up booker, please book me. But doing the podcast,
hire the boy.
Yeah, but it's when I look into the future and I imagine my ideal future, it's me being a great podcaster and that being my thing and doing stand up when I want to.
Yeah,
stand up being the thing I do when I enjoy it. And not as a job. I'd much rather be the podcast be my job.
Got it.
You know what I mean? So I didn't think that would happen. I thought it would be the other way around. But just doing the podcast, I'm like, fuck, this is way better. This is so much fun. Is that? Yeah, Yeah, it was really cool.
Where do you see yourself here with this whole journey?
I want to continue on with the podcasting. I feel like the more I've done it, the more I enjoy it. And I love it more each time. I do truly feel like this is my passion. I did think the stand-up comedy route was what I wanted, but the more I do this, I'm like, you know what? I think this is what I want to spend my energy and my time in. I want to focus on one thing, and this is the thing.
Wow, how about that?
Mm-hmm. Stand-up, right. Dude, the business, the
I don't know how you do it.
Going through stand-up fucking sucks, dude. It sucks.
Mics.
Yeah, it's you have to, and it's not good for my career to be saying this because bookers don't want to hear this shit. But it's you have to go and appease these bookers who it's so arbitrary how they pick people. It's just ugh. Whereas in the podcast, you're just doing exactly what you want to do.
There's a freedom.
Yeah, and even the audience, I love doing stand up too. Don't get me wrong, I think stand up's fun as shit. And it's great, but not having that immediate audience to have to
cater to.
Yeah, it's really the podcast way more freeing in that aspect.
I mean, am I completely rolling it out forever? No, but I do love podcasting. Podcasting has my heart. I enjoy it. It's something, if I'm going to put my energy into something and perfect it and make it the best I can, it's podcasting.
Joel, have fun?
This was awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm so appreciative. Thank you, Eric. This studio.
I appreciate
is so
all of you for coming in.
And I will say, and I just want to say for everybody, listen to Danii, listen to Cory. Cory is one of the funniest people I've met conversationally.
man.
Like he said,
I appreciate that.
yeah, like when I did his show, and it's just so fun. And my favorite part of doing any of these shows, people don't even get to hear. Just speaking to people afterwards, sharing ideas and stuff. That's the coolest thing. So like anybody who's interested in anything, just go do something.
Yes.
Just go do something. Don't talk about, oh, well, if I did this and this and this, it's empty. Go do something. It's you'll feel fulfilled from doing it.
Do stuff. Yeah. I mean, life is for the living, you know? I mean, they say that if someone dies, you know, oh, you know, life's for the living. Well, life is for the living. If you're fucking sitting on your couch and, you know, doing nothing, then you're not living.
I think they say
Yeah.
in the Shawshank Redemption, get busy living or get busy dying, man.
Yeah, I mean, but isn't it true?
I'm serious, yeah.
I mean, find out what you're passionate about. Find out. And if you don't know, there's nothing wrong with that. But find out. You know, part of my, you know, I won't get into the details of it, but part of my story, part of my testimonial of life is that I had a guy shake me up in 97, and he asked me, what are you passionate about? And I said, I don't know. He says, marry your vocation with your passion, because obviously what you're doing for a living now is great. You've got money, but do you like it? I changed everything by what this guy told me to do.
Yeah.
Everything changed for me. Everything changed for me. So what I'm saying is I found a way to find something I dig,
Right.
and I monetized it. You know,
Yeah.
that won't work for everybody, but it worked for me. But at least I found, if nothing else, I found what I dug at that time to help me through whatever I was going through. Find out what you're passionate about and just get up and do it, even if it's not money related, right?
Yeah.
Go find what you like and just fucking go do it.
Just
Don't
enjoying the
stare,
time.
Don't stare at a screen.
Life's too short. Go enjoy something.
Don't stare at a screen. Go yell at somebody.
It's incredible what everyone can do. Like, and it sounds so stupid.
They gotta
and
want
shit.
it, though.
But like, if you want something, go and do it, and you will surprise yourself. Not that I'm anything special, because I'm not. But like, if you go and do things, you'll surprise yourself every day,
Yeah,
and
it-
it's fulfilling.
And it's a muscle. And you get a little success here, and like, oh, I'm gonna try this, and it just builds. Things fucking build. Activity builds. All right, that's enough of the self-development class today.
Thank you, Gary V.
Yeah.
I didn't say enough fucks. To
Yeah.
be Gary
Yeah.
V. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Come see me
Thank
again.
you.
Thank
Yes,
you
For sure.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, friends, we're out.
Peace.